Chapter 295. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. This farce didn't last long because the Lantern Festival had begun. Yuan Tong didn't have the time to argue with this big wasp and dragged her sister to the festival. She's really too much. Are women nowadays so unreasonable? Gu Qinfeng touched his crushed stomach and then touched his face. Yuan Tong was a little girl who didn't know martial arts. That slap wasn't too strong, but it was to embarrass Gu Qinfeng. The real pain was in his waist. Could a man's stomach be crushed here? Would it still work in the future? I suspect it's all bruised, Gu Qinfeng muttered bitterly. Gu Changqing looked at him lightly and said, "How old are you?" 18. 19, what's wrong? He was the same age as Xiao Lulang, but the months were different. Now he was 18 years old and 19 years old. But Gu Changqing didn't say anything and only gave him a look. Gu Qinfeng didn't feel that he was in the wrong. He was the one who was hit, but he was slapped for no reason. Who could he reason with? Gu Changqing ignored him and turned to walk towards Jade Water Alley. Those who grew up in the capital knew the Lantern Festival like the back of their hand. In a while, Chang and Main Street would be so congested that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Gu Changqing looked at Gu Qinfeng, who was following behind him, and asked, "Aren't you here to watch the Lantern Festival? Why aren't you going?" Gu Changqing went to see Gu Yan, and Gu Qinfeng went to watch the Lantern Festival. The two of them were going the same way, so they walked together. Gu Qinfeng snorted, "I was going to watch the Lantern Festival, but that Yuan Tong is also going there. I don't want to meet her. Whoever meets her will be unlucky." "Be careful with your words," Gu Changqing said sternly. Gu Qinfeng pursed his lips. Speaking of morals, Gu Qinfeng was actually not as good as his younger brother, Gu Chenglin. Gu Chenglin was spoiled by his family, but his words and actions outside were still very much like a noble young master. If Gu Chenglin was slapped by this girl today, he would probably choke until his face turned red and he wouldn't be able to say a single word. Gu Changqing didn't say anything else. If Gu Qinfeng wanted to follow, then so be it. Gu Yan's body was fine, and he had already moved back from the old chancellor's place. However, for the time being, he didn't go to Qinghe Academy to study, nor did he go to Nanxiang and Master Lu's place to learn skills. Gu Jiao and the others were not there. Only little Jing Kong came back from the Imperial College. He was holding his personal bucket in one hand and his personal paddle in the other. He was carefully watering the recipes in the front yard. After watering, he would put the chicks in to catch insects in the vegetable field. Little Jing Kong stopped watering when he heard the door being pushed open. He turned around and said excitedly, "Big brother, you're here." Jing Kong. Gu Changqing nodded and stepped over the threshold. Gu Qinfeng also walked in. He didn't come to Qingshui Alley many times. What left the deepest impression was that he was anesthetized and thrown on the bed and witnessed a bloody and terrible operation with his own eyes. He couldn't eat meat until now. This big brother is here too. Little Jing Kong had seen Gu Qinfeng in the medical center before. However, he didn't know his name, so he called him Big Brother. It was every doctor's professional ethics to not ask about the patient's privacy. Jiao Jiao was a doctor, but he was also a junior doctor. He had successfully saved a handsome uncle. Gu Qinfeng hummed. He looked at the little guy who shaved Gu Qinglin's hair into a yin-yang hairstyle. In fact, there was still a little shadow in his heart. However, it was undeniable that the little guy was really good-looking. "I'll help you," Gu Changqing said to little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong thought for a while and said, "Okay." Jiao Jiao said that sometimes you don't need a person's help to accept it. It's okay to like it. He liked Big Brother. The water in the small wooden bucket was almost gone. There was still half a dish to be watered, so Gu Changqing went to the backyard to get water. He passed the gifts he had brought for them to little Jing Kong along the way. Little Jing Kong held the big bag in his arms and looked at Gu Qinfeng with his head tilted. Gu Chengfeng was embarrassed by his gaze. He touched the bridge of his nose and said to him, "Then I'll help you too. Is there any other work to be done?" Little Jing Kong nodded. His eyes were shining. He pointed his finger and said, "There's a small bucket over there too." Little Jing Kong brought Gu Chengfeng to another small bucket. Then his fair and handsome face suddenly darkened. Why was his big brother carrying water? It was his turn to carry feces. Gu Chengfeng resisted the urge to roll his eyes and said, "Why did you pick this thing?" Little Jing Kong said seriously, "To fertilize it. The better the fertilizer, the fatter the vegetables." The standard to determine if the fertilizer was good was Gu Chengfeng didn't dare to think further. Originally, he just couldn't eat meat. From now on, he couldn't eat vegetables as well? What kind of hatred and resentment did he have with this house in Jade Water Alley? If it happened again, he wouldn't even need to drink water anymore. He wanted to help the little monk, so he had to help him even if he had to cry. Wu Gu Chengfeng, the noble young master, finally understood what it meant to make a life worse than death. Gu Chongqing went to Gu Yan's room. Gu Yan had just woken up from his sleep. He was sitting in front of the window, in a daze. A tuft of hair on the top of his head stood up restlessly. Perhaps it was because of the rain last night, but the weather today wasn't hot. There was a cool breeze, which was very comfortable for Gu Chongqing. But it was a bit cold for Gu Yan. He sat there in thin clothes. At first glance, he looked like a helpless little boy. Actually, he was just waking up from his sleep. However, in Gu Chongqing's eyes, he was sad because of something. Was it because of Tang Ming? Or was it because of him? Gu Chongqing wasn't sure. A layer of apprehension surged in his heart. He wanted to go over and put some clothes on him, but he was worried that he would hate him and not want to see him. "You're here." It was Yao Shi's voice. Yao Shi had just gone to the kitchen to make a plate of pastries for Gu Yan. She didn't see Gu Chongqing in the front yard, who was being squeezed dry by little Jing Kong. She wasn't surprised by Gu Chongqing's appearance. "I heard that something happened in the army camp a while ago. Are you okay?" Yao Shi asked. This was the first time she, as his stepmother, openly showed concern for Gu Chongqing after he grew up. When she first married into the Marquis's household, she naively thought that she could raise 3 children, even if it wasn't what she wanted. But she was already married. She didn't think of running away. But the result was obvious. "I'm fine," Gu Chongqing replied politely. Hearing his voice, Gu Yan finally reacted. He reflexively turned around. Gu Chongqing noticed his movements from the corner of his eyes and hurriedly looked over, as if he wanted to see his expression. But Gu Yan didn't know if it was because he suddenly thought of something or something. But he turned his head back halfway. Gu Chongqing felt a wave of disappointment. Yao Shi looked at Gu Yan and lowered her eyes to smile. She handed the plate of pastries in her hand to Gu Chongqing. "I suddenly remembered that I still have a set of clothes that I haven't finished making. Help me give it to Yan, Gu Chongqing was hesitating whether or not to refuse, but Yao Shi had already stuffed the plate of pastries into his hands. Gu Chongqing looked at Yao Shi's back as she walked away. He suddenly felt that if he didn't have so many prejudices in the past and didn't misbelieve the rumors, Yao Shi might really have been a very gentle and understanding stepmother. It was just that his relationship with Yao Shi couldn't be repaired to its ideal state. But between him and Gu Yan, he squeezed his fingers. He didn't want to give up. He knocked on the open door. "I'm coming in." Gu Yan didn't say anything. He only moved his small body forward, silently expressing his resistance. Gu Chongqing came to his side and placed a stack of delicious mung bean cakes in front of him. "It's still hot. Eat it while it's hot." Gu Yan didn't eat it. Gu Chongqing turned his head and opened the wardrobe. He took out a long gown and put on him. Gu Yan grabbed the long gown and threw it on the floor without any trace of politeness. If it was said that he had only been testing and guessing before, then Gu Chongqing was almost certain that Gu Yan was angry at him. He didn't feel that he had done anything to make Gu Yan angry. If there was anything, it would be the night he was lured out of the military camp by the assassins. His slovenly appearance had offended Gu Yan. But Guyan wasn't such an unreasonable child. So Gu Chanqing took a deep breath. A guess that he didn't want to face and didn't want to think about flashed through his mind. Did you? He closed his eyes. In the end, he didn't ask those few words. If he could go back in time, he wouldn't have rejected the child who hid behind the tree and secretly watched him practice swordsmanship. He wouldn't have deliberately thrown away his handkerchief. He wouldn't have been indifferent when he needed him the most. He wouldn't have vented his father's anger on him. He wouldn't have neglected him. He wouldn't have hurt him. He wouldn't have. There were too many things that he wouldn't have done. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/112291435. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 296. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Yao Shi went to the front yard to collect chili peppers and saw Gu Chengfeng sweating in the vegetable field. Yao Shi was slightly startled and thought she had mistaken him for someone else. But she quickly dismissed the idea. It was indeed Gu Chengfeng. Strange, why is he here? And he's doing work here? Little Jing Kong said seriously, you can't just water one place. It has to be evenly distributed. Every vegetable needs to be irrigated with fertilizer. Little Jing Kong asked him to do it? They know each other? Gu Chengfeng was about to tell little Jing Kong to do it when he turned around and saw Yao Shi. Their eyes met. The two of them were speechless. At dusk, Xiao Lulang finished his duty at Hanlin Academy. Lin Qingye and Feng Lin also finished their studies at Hanlin Academy. Lulang. Feng Lin jumped down from the carriage and called him. After Feng Lin finished his studies at the Imperial College, he couldn't continue to live in the Imperial College's dormitory. The price of living in the capital was high, and so were the houses. Fortunately, he knew Lin Qingye, the little rich man. He was now living in Lin Qingye's house, and paid Lin Qingye some rent every month. The two of them went to class during the day and studied together at night. They learned a lot. Although Hanlin Academy was part of Hanlin Academy, it was different from Hanlin Academy's officials. In the past, the three of them never met. You're so early today. Didn't those people arrange anything for you? Feng Lin asked. The main purpose of Feng Lin and the other scholars was to study, so they didn't have much work to do. However, Xiao Lulang was going to be an official, so it was different. Moreover, Xiao Lulang was a newcomer. It was normal for him to be asked to do odd jobs. Ning Ziyuan was also often asked to do odd jobs. Except for Princeton, who had a strong background, everyone in Hanlin Academy respected him and didn't dare to order him around. Yes, I don't have anything to do today, Xiao Lulang said. Lulang, we'll send you back. Lin Qingye stuck his head out of the car window and said. Although Lin Qingye had not completely recovered from his stuttering, he was still very happy that he could occasionally spit out 3 words. This was all thanks to Feng Lin. Feng Lin would practice speaking with Lin Qingye every night. This was an inspiration given to him by Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao would help Xiao Lulang practice walking every night. Even after a day, Xiao Lulang did not show any signs of recovery. But Gu Jiao never gave up. Feng Lin was deeply touched. Of course, Xiao Lulang didn't give up on letting Gu Jiao practice her calligraphy every day, which made Gu Jiao go crazy. Xiao Lulang hadn't slept the whole night and hadn't eaten dinner the night before. He didn't have much of an appetite during the day, so he was really tired now. It would be hard for him to walk back alone. He got into the carriage. In order to keep a low profile, Lin Xingye chose a small carriage, but everything inside was filled with the extravagance of a nouveau riche. Lin Xingye was already used to it. Xiao Lulang was almost dazzled. The two of them gave the most comfortable seats to Xiao Lulang. To them, Xiao Lulang was both a teacher and a friend. Without Xiao Lulang, they wouldn't be where they were today. Lulang, you don't look so good. Have you been too tired recently? After all, Feng Lin wasn't in the inner circle of the Hanlin Academy, so he wasn't particularly clear about Xiao Liulang's situation. Plus, everyone knew that they were close to Xiao Lulang, so naturally, they wouldn't mention Xiao Lulang in front of them. Feng Lin only occasionally bumped into Ning Ziyuan in the restaurant and asked him a few questions. Xiao Lulang said, "Nothing. How's your study going?" At the mention of this, Feng Lin's attention was successfully diverted. He couldn't help but complain. I naively thought that after the imperial examinations, I wouldn't have to study anymore. At least, I wouldn't have to write 8-legged essays anymore. I didn't expect that after I stopped writing 8-legged essays, so much history, arithmetic, agriculture, astronomy, the content was similar to the content of the 3 cauldrons, but there was a difference in progress and depth. After all, they were all preparatory officials of the imperial court. Naturally, the direction of their studies was different. Their goal was no longer the imperial examinations, but the path of an official and the benefits of the country and the people. It would be best if they could do practical things for the people. The current Hanlin Academy was stricter than the previous dynasty. It was said that they would go to the countryside. It was just that they didn't know when it would be the turn of the new batch. When Xiao Lulang got home, Gu Jiao had just returned from the medical center. She carried a small basket on her back, and her small hands were under the basket. She walked casually, and her aura was somewhat unapproachable. Xiao Lulang inexplicably felt that her walking was a bit arrogant and naughty. He didn't know if she sensed something, but Gu Jiao calmly turned her head around. She probably didn't expect that Xiao Lulang would be behind her. There was a little annoyance that couldn't be removed from her face. Her small eyebrows were also tightly knitted together. The only thing missing was a few words written on her face. Don't provoke me. I am very annoyed. When Gu Jiao saw Xiao Lulang, she changed her expression in a second and put on an obedient expression. If being obedient didn't work, then being gentle would do too. Gu Jiao widened her eyes and did her best to show off her S-grade acting skills. Unfortunately, it was too late. Xiao Lulang saw everything that should have been seen. Oh, so she was like this in private? Xiao Lulang seemed to have discovered a new continent. He was stunned for a moment, and then he couldn't help but laugh softly. His stomach that had been hungry for a day and a night, his mind that had been tired the whole night, and his tiredness that had been busy the whole day, all disappeared in the evening breeze at this moment. Gu Jiao grabbed the straps of the small basket with both hands. She lowered her head and kicked the small pebbles on the ground with the tip of her foot. Don't laugh. You'll see a foul. Give it to me. Xiao Lulang walked over with his walking stick. He wanted to take the small basket on her back. No need, it's not heavy. Gu Jiao said. The last time she refused to help him carry something was when they went to buy candied haws in Little Jingkong. A familiar scene flashed through his mind. Xiao Liulang's expression changed slightly. His eyelashes trembled, and he slowly reached out to hold her small hand. His fingertips were so close that he could almost feel the heat on the back of her hand. Lulang is back. Jiao Jiao is back too. Auntie Lu suddenly walked out of her courtyard and looked at the two of them with a smile. Xiao Lulang quickly pulled back his hand that was about to touch Gu Jiao's fingertips. He greeted Auntie Lu without changing his expression. Auntie Lu. Gu Jiao looked at Auntie Lu with hidden bitterness. Auntie Lu felt a chill on her forehead. Aya, what's wrong with Jiao Niang today? She doesn't seem very happy. Auntie Lu hurriedly said to Xiao Lulang, Lulang, you. Hurry up and coax your wife. Is it because you didn't come back last night that you made her unhappy? Xiao Lulang couldn't help but smile. He tried his best to suppress the corners of his lips. It took him a lot of effort to keep a serious expression on his face. Last night, I went with the yamen to do my duty outside the city. He said this to Auntie Lu and also to Gu Jiao. Auntie Lu stood at the door and looked at the young couple lovingly. She had no intention of entering the house. Xiao Lulang was thin-skinned, old-fashioned, and serious. There was no chance of holding her hand. Gu Jiao walked away with a face full of hidden bitterness. The two of them entered the house. Gu Chongqing and Gu Chengfeng were still there. It had rained last night, and the roof of Master Zhao's house had been damaged. He had originally planned to ask Gu Jiao to help fix it, but Gu Jiao had come to see him before the sun had risen. Master Zhao had come over again just now. After understanding the situation, Gu Chongqing went to fix the roof for him. Master Zhao leaned against the wall of his house and chuckled. Jiao Jiao's mother, is that your eldest son? He's quite capable. Gu Chongqing's hand that was reaching for the roof tile paused. He resisted the urge to turn around. Behind him came Madame Yao's voice that was as light as a breeze and as gentle as water. That's right. Dirty linen should not be aired in public. The relationship between Madame Yao and Gu Chongqing was not something that outsiders could talk about. Even though he understood that Yao Shi's yes was not truly acknowledging him, Gu Chongqing still let out a sigh of relief for no reason. On the other side, Gu Chengfeng was still fertilizing the vegetable garden. He was extremely conflicted and in pain. Little Jing Kong had some free time. He sat on a stool with little 8 in his arms to supervise the work. While supervising, he stroked little 8's fur. He still did not give up on his wish to turn his bad brother-in-law into little 8. His master had said that if he was sincere, it would work. Every day, before he went to bed, he prayed to Buddha. He believed that there would be a day when Buddha would turn his bad brother-in-law into little 8 and give it to him. Thinking of this, his heart was filled with longing. Ahung, Xiao Lulang, who had just crossed the threshold. Xiao Lulang was not shocked by little Jing Kong for too long. After all, there was an even more shocking fertilizing master, Gu Chengfeng. Madame Yao asked Xiao Lulang about last night's situation. Was it tiring? Xiao Lulang avoided the topic and said, it wasn't tiring. I just tidied up the library and did some classification and document repairs. She told him to change his clothes and prepare to eat. She then said to little Jing Kong, go call the young master over to eat. Little Jing Kong put little 8 down and pattered away. Madame Yao went next door to call Gu Chongqing. Come over to eat first, she said. She paused for a moment and seemed to realize that her invitation was not in line with her relationship with Gu Chongqing. She added, you fix the roof for Master Zhao. If you don't fix it, you'll have to Jiao do it later. It turned out that she was thanking him for doing what Gu Jiao did. Okay. Gu Chongqing finished fixing the roof and replaced the last tile, then came down from the roof. Master Zhao brought some fruit and pickled vegetables over and thanked the two. The pickled vegetables were made by home, so Madame Yao accepted it. She had Master Zhao leave the fruit for Xiao Bao to eat. Gu Chongqing watched her handle the neighborhood relationship with ease and could not help but think, if his mother was still alive, would she be like this? The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/1122888801. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 297. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The next day, Xiao Lulang woke up early and went to Hanlin Academy. Hanlin Academy was very lively. From time to time, congratulations and laughter could be heard from another row of office rooms. Xiao Lulang didn't know what was going on at first. When Ning Ziyuan arrived, he whispered to him that Yang Xiuzhu had been promoted. Yang Xiuzhu's promotion was no secret, but he heard that it would be at the end of the year. Do you know how he got promoted? Ning Ziyuan asked. How did you get promoted? Xiao Lulang wasn't very interested in Yang Xiuzhu's story. He was just trying to satisfy Ning Ziyuan's curiosity. Let's go, let's talk over there. Ning Ziyuan pulled Xiao Lulang to the office room that was emitting the smell of ecstasy. Master Chun was transferred to the Ministry of Revenue early this morning, Ning Ziyuan said. It wasn't rare for the 6 ministries of the Imperial Court to transfer people from Hanlin Academy. Moreover, Attendant Chun had been chosen by the Minister of Revenue early on and was going to be transferred to work under him. It was because he was going to be transferred that the position of Attendant Chun became vacant, allowing Yang Xiuzhu to be promoted. Master Chun was supposed to be transferred after the new year, but things just happened to be so coincidental. I heard that your library has been organized extremely well, some of the restored books even obtaining Grand Secretary Yuan's favor. Xiao Lulang organized and restored most of the books in the library, but not all of them. Yang Xiuzhu and Royal Prince, and had also restored some of them. So Xiao Lulang and Shi Yi hadn't guessed that the restored books would be favored by Grand Secretary Yuan. Ning Ziyuan was even more clueless. He was just lamenting that Yang Xiuzhu was too lucky. He wasn't a good person. So how did he have such a good career? Ning Ziyuan sighed. Master Han praised Yang Xiuzhu greatly. No, I should call him Attendant Yang now, a 6th rank attendant. He used to be of the same rank as you, but now he's a level above you. Xiao Lulang said carelessly. It's not like I only found out today that he's going to be promoted. Didn't it matter whether he was promoted sooner or later? Attendant Yang was born as a noble scholar, and it took him 5 years to reach the position of Lord Attendant. For a noble scholar, this was considered fast. Xiao Lulang was different. He was the #1 scholar. As long as he didn't court disaster, his promotion speed would definitely be faster than the Jinshi of the same batch. Reading Attendant Yang's superiority over him was only temporary. Take a look at this. Ning Ziyuan took out an inscription tablet from his chest. Xiao Lulang asked, Why are you carrying this thing with you? No, I want you to take a look at its contents. Ning Ziyuan handed the manuscript of the inscription to Xiao Lulang. Does it look familiar? Xiao Lulang said, I wrote it. What's wrong? Ning Ziyuan clicked his tongue and said, Attendant Yang handed it in and said that I guided him for half a day and made him rewrite it 17 times. That's all your credit. Tell me the truth. Did he guide you in a single word? Xiao Lulang took the inscription tablet and casually placed it on the table. He said casually, It's just an inscription tablet. You're really not angry? Ning Ziyuan didn't seem to believe him. What's there to be angry about? Xiao Lulang asked. As long as you're not angry. Ning Ziyuan finally let out a sigh of relief. This kind of thing is commonplace in the bureaucracy. Before you make it big, you don't have the right to speak. You're so young, but you're able to keep your composure. You're much better than I was when I was young. But Xiao Lulang promised me, even if one day you climb over these people's heads, you won't become like them. Ning Ziyuan was 30 years old. His appearance wasn't outstanding. His face was square and his skin was dark. But at this moment, he looked at Xiao Lulang with eyes that were bright and full of passion and conviction. It almost made one's eyes burn. Xiao Lulang looked at him steadily and nodded. Ning Ziyuan showed a relieved smile. He patted Xiao Lulang on the shoulder and said with great ambition, Don't think that I come from a humble background, have no background, and have no connections. Occasionally, I dream that one day I will climb up. I don't need to climb too high. Becoming a 5th-rank Hanlin Academy scholar is my lifelong dream. As he spoke, he clenched his fists, as if he wanted to force out all the contempt he had received along the way from his bones. I'm thinking, when I have that day, when I'm in charge of the Hamlin Academy, I won't appoint people blindly for money, blindly for connections, blindly for people, blindly for people, blindly for people, blindly for people, and blindly for people to make trouble for me. After the rain, the weather in the capital was pleasant. After court, the officials left the palace in succession and headed to their respective yamens. Grand Tutor Zhuang also left the throne room and chatted with a few colleagues he had good relations with. There was nothing to report to the Empress Dowager today, so he planned to leave the palace. He had only taken a few steps when he was stopped by Grand Tutor Yuan. Grand Tutor Zhuang. Grand Tutor Zhuang turned around with a bit of surprise. Grand Tutor Yuan. Grand Tutor Yuan was the #1 official in the imperial cabinet, but the 2 secondary secretaries, the palace secretary, and the 3 imperial cabinet scholars were all Grand Tutor Zhuang's people. That was why it could be said that almost half of the imperial cabinet was under Grand Tutor Zhuang's control. However, the imperial cabinet still respected Grand Tutor Yuan, so his words still carried the greatest weight. However, Grand Tutor Yuan was getting on in years and wouldn't be able to remain as Grand Tutor for many more years. One day, one of the secondary secretaries would take over his position. When that time came, that would be when Grand Tutor Zhuang completely seized control of the imperial cabinet. On the surface, Grand Tutor Zhuang never clashed with Grand Tutor Yuan, but the two of them never interacted much, so it was unknown why Grand Tutor Yuan stopped him today. Grand Tutor Yuan walked forward and looked towards Grand Tutor Zhuang with an amiable expression. Grand Tutor Zhuang's complexion has become better and better recently. Grand Tutor Zhuang said politely, "It's all thanks to you." Grand Tutor Yuan laughed. Grand Tutor Zhuang is too polite. Grand Tutor Zhuang said bluntly, "Is there something Grand Tutor Yuan needs me for?" Grand Tutor Yuan said, "It isn't anything major. Yesterday, I saw some of the ancient texts Hamlin Academy sent over. They were restored quite well. There were quite a few places that not even the great scholars of the imperial court could make a decision on, but Hamlin Academy filled them all in. I heard that Prince An also participated in the editing and restoration." Grand Tutor Zhuang said, "Is that so? I didn't inquire too much about ancient Jade's matters." He really didn't inquire about it. However, there were naturally people who reported it to him. The reason why he said this was to avoid arousing suspicion in front of Grand Tutor Yuan, to express that he didn't interfere with Hamlin Academy. Grand Tutor Yuan didn't mention Northern Yen Ode on its own, because last night, after burning the midnight oil to read the remaining texts, he discovered that its level of brilliance didn't lose out to Northern Yen Ode in the slightest. At his age, burning the midnight oil to read was already something from 30 years ago. Yet he couldn't stop reading last night. Even though he didn't personally see the original ancient texts, most of this history could be verified from other ancient texts. In other words, in order to restore these ancient texts, one needed a vast amount of historical knowledge as a foundation. Moreover, there weren't any mistakes in the handwriting. Even if it was Grand Tutor Yuan himself, it was hard for him to guarantee that under that type of dry state, he wouldn't make a single mistake. Grand Tutor Yuan still didn't know that Xiao Lulang burned the midnight oil lamp to restore it. If he knew, it would be even more shocking. Grand Tutor Zhuang knew Prince An's whereabouts like the back of his hand, so he naturally knew that he had visited Moon Net Mountain's library. He believed that the reason Grand Tutor Yuan said this was because the ancient texts he obtained were indeed the ones Prince An restored. He understood his own grandson's strength well, so he didn't suspect that there was a misunderstanding. He laughed and said, to be able to contribute a bit to Hamlin Academy, his years of studying weren't in vain. How is it just contributing a bit? It is a great contribution. Grand Tutor Yuan never lightly praised others. Even the young noble who reigned supreme in Radiant Capital didn't receive a single word of praise from him. Grand Tutor Zhuang, you have a good grandson. Grand Tutor Zhuang was simply overwhelmed by the favor. This old picky ghost actually knew how to praise others? He suppressed the excitement at the bottom of his heart, cupping his hands. Grand Tutor Yuan praises me too much. Grand Tutor Yuan released a laugh, asking, "I heard that Grand Tutor Zhuang's grandson still hasn't discussed marriage." Grand Tutor Zhuang stared blankly. At the end of the 5th month, Hanlin Academy held an examination. Among the scholars, Feng Lin and Lin Qingye were respectively ranked 4th and 5th from the bottom, while Du Ruhan squeezed into the top 9. Grand Tutor Yuan's legitimate grandson, Yuan Yu, was originally ranked 1st in the scholar examination. This time, he performed abnormally, falling to 5th place. The composers and editors didn't rank their results together with them. After all, the examination questions were different. Xiao Lulang was ranked 7th, Ning Ziyuan was ranked 6th, and 1st place was Prince and Ning Ziyuan came to find Xiao Lulang, saying quietly, "That's impossible. I clearly made so many mistakes in my math, you didn't get a single question wrong. How could I possibly do better than you?" Math was the easiest to calculate marks in. Right was right, wrong was wrong, unlike the literary test questions, which were too subjective. Moreover, even in the literary test, Ning Ziyuan was definitely inferior to Xiao Lulang. Needless to say, it was obvious that Xiao Liulang's results had been deliberately suppressed. This kind of internal examination wasn't as strict as the imperial examination. If the imperial examination examinees weren't satisfied with the results, they could go to the yamen or the examination hall to flip through the examination papers. If they still weren't satisfied after reading, they could go to the yamen to complain. If the imperial examination was over, then so be it. They didn't have a chance to defend themselves. Digression. Third watch. Do you have a monthly ticket? The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1122877763. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bqg mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 298. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Ning Ziyuan deeply felt sorry for Xiao Lulang. This was his first time in the capital, but it wasn't his first time coming into contact with officialdom. When he was in the local area, he had been a teacher at the prefectural school and had also been a temporary registrar for the county magistrate. He had seen the darkness and strife of officialdom with his own eyes, but he had never expected that the Hanlin Academy, such a clean place, would have such unfair things. In fact, his own life wasn't very smooth, but this kind of unsmoothness was within the normal range. He had no power, no influence, and no background, so he wasn't valued. Xiao Lulang, on the other hand, was deliberately suppressed. Xiao Lulang had a good mentality and didn't break down. If it were someone else, they would have broken down long ago. Ning Ziyuan didn't say anything else. He patted his shoulder and sighed as he left. Xiao Lulang went out to wash his brush. When he came to the ink washing pool, Royal Prince and happened to also come here to wash his brush. He didn't need to do it himself. Someone else would do it for him. He was surrounded by a group of colleagues who all congratulated him. I heard that Editor Zhuang got first place. This is called True Gold Fears No Fire. Yes. This time, no one dares to be biased. As they spoke without scruples, they didn't forget to cast meaningful glances at Xiao Lulang. The story of how Xiao Lulang got first place had long been spread in the capital. It was said that he had a face that was 70 to 80% similar to the young Duke of Jiaodu, and that he had won the favor of the young Duke's father and the young Duke's senior brothers. Even his top scorer was deliberately given to him by the emperor in order to suppress the Zhuang family. and the emperor couldn't reach so far into everything. The Hanlon Academy was a place where the emperor's bloodline couldn't reach. As a matter of fact, he showed his true colors in the first Hanlon Academy exam. In fact, don't think that scholars would be more reserved than country shrews. Country shrews only had a loud voice and coarse reasoning, so they couldn't scold people's sore spots. When scholars scolded people, they could cut people's hearts open. Their lips and tongues were as sharp as knives, and each knife drew blood. However, the officials of the Hanlon Academy were not as unscrupulous as the foppish sons of the Imperial College. They cherished their reputation and would not really block Xiao Lulang here to do anything to him, nor would they deliberately trip him to embarrass him. They would only use their authority to suppress him, or group together to ridicule him and isolate him. Xiao Liulang's expression didn't change much. After washing the brush, he planned to leave. That should be the case. The correct number is 27. After Royal Prince finished explaining the answer to an editor who asked him for advice on arithmetic, he called out to Xiao Lulang, "Wait a moment." Xiao Lulang stopped and looked at him indifferently. "What's the matter?" Royal Prince said, "Hanlon Academy is a place of fair competition. No matter what others say, I hope you understand that strength speaks for itself here. You know how you became the top scorer. Hanlon Academy won't give Marquis Xian Ping a chance to interfere. You really shouldn't have sided with Marquis Xian Ping." If he was a general, siding with Marquis Xian Ping was still acceptable. But he was a scholar. The banker was the tallest tree. Xiao Lulang didn't respond to Royal Prince An's words. He only glanced at the question in the editor's hand and said, 19. After saying that, he calmly left. Royal Prince frowned. What 19? The editor was studying Royal Prince An's solution and didn't dare to eavesdrop on their conversation. Royal Prince walked over and took the question to look at it again. He suddenly realized that he missed a number on the 7th step. The final result of the calculation was, Royal Prince took the pen and paper and calculated on the paper. 19. How did he know? Had he done this question before? It couldn't be that he just listened to the editor read the question and then calculated the result in his mind. Impossible. He wasn't that smart. For this kind of huge calculation, an ordinary person would have to calculate on paper for a day. Even the Hanlon Academy scholars, who were smarter than ordinary people, would have to spend at least an hour. He was exceptionally smart, so he only used a quarter of an hour. But this still required him to write down the complicated and huge calculation steps on paper. And he calculated wrongly. How could Xiao Lulang calculate it correctly using only mental calculation? After his shift, Royal Prince sat on the carriage to return home. He was surprised to find Grand Tutor Zhuang in the carriage. "Grandfather." Royal Prince bowed. "Why are you here?" "I was passing by, so I came to see you." Grand Tutor Zhuang said in a good mood. Ever since Empress Dowager Zhuang sent Zhuang Yueshi home from the palace, Grand Tutor Zhuang hadn't shown such a happy expression for many days. Royal Prince couldn't help but ask, "Grandfather, why are you so happy? Is there a joyous occasion?" Grand Tutor Zhuang looked at him with admiration and couldn't hide a smile. It's indeed a joyous occasion. There weren't many things that could make his grandfather happy. Royal Prince looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang in confusion. He didn't know why, but he had a bad feeling in his heart. Grand Tutor Zhuang finally stopped keeping him in suspense and smiled at Royal Prince Grand Tutor Yuan is interested in you. Grand Tutor Yuan? Royal Prince was shocked. Grand Tutor Yuan was a prominent figure in Zhao country. He was the #1 assistant minister in the cabinet. Why would he suddenly be interested in him? It wasn't that Royal Prince looked down on himself and felt that he didn't have the ability. It was just that his reputation had spread out long ago. If Grand Tutor Yuan wanted him, he would have done so long ago. If it was because of this imperial examination, he only got 2nd place. Above him was Xiao Lulang, the new top scholar. Grand Tutor Zhuang smiled. "When you went to Mount Yuluo to organize the library, he saw the ancient books you organized and was very satisfied with you." royal prince, and was also very satisfied with the ancient books he organized. He had read a lot of books since he was young and never slacked on his studies in ancient country. He was also quite good at history. He didn't organize many ancient books that day, but he was confident that he organized them the best. Grand Tutor Yuan loves to study ancient books. Grand Tutor Zhuang said, "I see." Royal Prince and was enlightened. No wonder he suddenly liked him. Then does he plan on taking me as his disciple? It would be great if he could take Grand Tutor Yuan as his master. Although they were all considered the emperor's disciples after passing the Jinshu exam, no one would dislike having such an excellent master. In his opinion, only 4 people in the 6 countries were qualified to be his master. One was the deceased Elder Feng. One was Yen country's Layman Han Shan. One was Zhao country's Sir Lien Yun. And the last was Grand Tutor Yuan. Even his 4th uncle Zhuang Xian Ji wasn't qualified. As for Chancellor Hua, he didn't get along with Empress Dowager Zhuang. Royal Prince unnaturally didn't like him that much. Not a disciple, but a grandson-in-law. Grand Tutor Zhuang said. Royal Prince and frowned. Grand Tutor Zhuang said, "He wants to betroth you to his granddaughter who grew up in the Taoist temple. That girl's talent is quite good. Grand Tutor Yuan values her, but she's a woman and can't inherit Grand Tutor Yuan's legacy. If you really marry her, you'll be no different from Grand Tutor Yuan's disciple." How was there no difference? There was a generation difference. Royal Prince didn't say this. His marriage wasn't up to him to decide. However, if he didn't marry the girl he liked, then wouldn't it be the same no matter who he married? After Attendant Yang was promoted, he was busy teaching the scholars in Hanlin Academy and temporarily didn't have time to make things difficult for Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang finished his duty on time. He packed his things and left Hanlin Academy. As soon as he left, Editor Tsin also came out of his office. He had been hiding from Xiao Lulang for the past 2 days. Firstly, he felt guilty for scheming against Xiao Lulang. Secondly, he was observing when Xiao Lulang would confront and complain to Attendant Yang. Xiao Lulang headed west after leaving Hanlin Academy. He clearly remembered that Xiao Lulang always headed east. Could it be that he really went to complain to Attendant Yang? The west happened to be the direction of Hanlin Academy. Xiao Lulang did go to Hanlin Academy, but he didn't go to Attendant Yang. Instead, he went to find Feng Lin and Lin Qingye. Last night, he sorted out some astronomy and mathematics questions that should be suitable for their current progress. Sun Wei followed him sneakily. When he saw Xiao Lulang heading in the direction of Hanlin Academy, his heart jumped to his throat. However, he did not expect that Xiao Lulang would be stopped by someone on the way. It was a woman. The woman was dressed beautifully. Her eyebrows were delicate, and her hair was full of pearl hairpins. Although she wore a veil, it was still difficult to hide her charm. Editor Tsin only took one look and felt his eyes pop out of their sockets. The woman didn't go forward. It was the young maid beside her who walked over and said something to Xiao Lulang. From Sun Wei's point of view, he could only see Xiao Liulang's back. He didn't know what Xiao Liulang's expression was, and he couldn't hear their voices. Then Xiao Lulang left. The young maid and the woman slightly bowed to Xiao Lulang. Digression. Today, I went to my relative's house to have a drink. Everyone was playing cards. Only I was typing. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_8964226/112265966. HTML Genius, memorize this website's address. www.zhpqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 299. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The next day, when Xiao Lulang arrived at the Hanlin Academy, he found that everyone was looking at him strangely. Although they weren't close to him, they wouldn't look at him with such disdain and complicated expressions. It was as if they disdained what he had done, but at the same time, they couldn't believe it. There was even a hint that Xiao Lulang didn't understand. Ning Ziyuan had been called to the Hanlin Academy as an assistant teacher by Assistant Yang, so he didn't ask Xiao Lulang what was going on with these people's gazes. But Xiao Lulang soon found out, because he was called over by Scholar Han of the Hanlin Academy. Scholar Han was the highest official in the Hanlin Academy and was in charge of the entire academy. Normally, people at his level wouldn't call in a 6th-rank cultivator alone. Scholar Han looked at Xiao Lulang. Although he restrained himself, he still glanced at the crutch in Xiao Liulang's hand. Then, his gaze fell on Xiao Liulang's face. It had to be said that this face really did look like the young Duke of Zhaodu who had passed away. Scholar Han came back to his senses and sighed deeply. He frowned and said, "Do you know why I called you here?" Xiao Lulang said neither humbly nor overbearingly, "I don't know." His manners and temperament weren't bad, not at all rustic. Scholar Han thought for a moment, then looked at Xiao Lulang and said, "Do you know that the court officials of the Zhao Kingdom are not allowed to wander around brothels?" Xiao Lulang said, "I know." Scholar Han looked at him seriously. "Then why did you go?" Xiao Lulang said seriously, "I have never been to brothels." Scholar Han said, "If you haven't been there, how do you know the brothel girls?" Xiao Lulang said strangely, "I don't know him." Scholar Han saw that he didn't seem to be lying, so he frowned and said, "You can leave. Do your job well and keep yourself clean. Don't degrade yourself and associate yourself with others. Don't do things that will damage the reputation of the Hanlin Academy." In Zhao country, brothels were legal, but it was not appropriate for an official to visit a brothel. Marquis Xianping was thick-skinned and did not care about his reputation. No matter how the emperor reprimanded him, he did not blush or pant. The Hanlin Academy, on the other hand, cared a lot about their reputation. He felt that people like Xiao Lulang shouldn't have the money to visit a brothel. After exhorting Xiao Lulang, he let Xiao Lulang leave. At the same time, he called an old attendant to tell him to tell the Hanlin Academy officials not to spread rumors. Xiao Lulang bumped into Ning Ziyuan, who had just returned from the Hanlin Academy. Ning Ziyuan pulled him to the back of the hallway and asked him in a low voice, "What happened?" "The entire Hanlin Academy is saying that you went to a brothel. I believe that you went to kill people, but I don't believe that you went to a brothel." If he wanted to go, he would have gone long ago. In order not to go to a brothel, he offended his colleagues and got himself drunk. Xiao Lulang said calmly, "I haven't been there." "Of course, I know you haven't been there. But did you offend someone recently? I mean someone other than Royal Prince?" A Ning Ziyuan felt that Royal Prince would not use such a sinister method to frame Xiao Lulang. It was too easy for him to suppress Xiao Lulang. There was no need for him to be so despicable. Xiao Lulang shook his head. There were many people in the Hanlin Academy who disliked him, but he couldn't remember who he had offended. Ning Ziyuan said anxiously, "Think about it carefully. If you don't find out who this scourge is, he will secretly harm you in the future. Scholar Han may believe you once, but he may not believe you 10 times. Gossip is a fearful thing." Xiao Lulang thought about it carefully. At this moment, Sun Xiu came out of Yang Xiu's office and walked towards the corridor. Ning Ziyuan was afraid of being discovered, so he gestured at Xiao Lulang and disappeared in a flash. Xiao Lulang was used to it. He walked calmly into the corridor and inevitably bumped into Sun Xiu. Sun Xiu's eyes flashed when he saw him. If it was in the past, Xiao Lulang would definitely not pay attention to the eyes of an insignificant person, but today he inexplicably noticed it. Sun Xiu? He stopped in his tracks. Sun Xiu's official position was half a rank lower than his, but he had started earlier than him. He was a shushi from Anka in the year of Yi Chou. 3 years ago, he was admitted to the Hamlin Academy and became a 6th-ranked Shushi. Shushi's promotion speed was slower than that of the 3 cauldrons. 2 years had passed, but he was still a 6th-ranked Hamlin Academy Shushi. It was not that Shushi's official position was low. Scholars could not enter the Hamlin Academy, and those who did not enter the Hamlin Academy could not enter the cabinet. Every official who had experience in the Hamlin Academy, even if they did not enter the cabinet, would be highly regarded in other yamens. It was just that comparisons were odious. For someone like Sun Xiu, who had toiled for 5 years without being promoted, what he hated the most was this kind of champion who had appeared out of nowhere. A 6th-ranked Shushi. That was a huge advantage over him. Sun Xiu reigned in the jealousy in his heart and looked at Xiao Lulang coldly. Xiao Lulang, what's the matter? Look at this. This is his attitude toward the new champion. So what if her rank is higher than mine? She's still a soft bun who can be bullied by anyone. Xiao Lulang paid no heed to the glee that flashed across Sun Xiu's eyes, but he suddenly recalled something. Back when Sun Xiu was working in the Compendium Pavilion, he seemed to have some complaints about me. Sun Xiu harumphed. Isn't that because you implicated me? If I hadn't been assigned with you, would I have been able to do so much? Xiao Lulang nodded. So, you intentionally didn't call me and locked me up in the Compendium Pavilion for an entire night? Despite Zhang Xian saying those words so casually, Sun Xiu's heart nearly exploded. You. What nonsense are you talking about? Sun Xiu's eyes widened as he bluffed. Xiao Lulang had heard from Ning Ziyuan that Yang Xiu was furious because he was late the next morning. It was clear that Yang Xiu didn't know that he was locked up in the Compendium Pavilion. Yang Xiu would not call him when he left, but he wouldn't call him personally either. That left only Wang Xiu and Sun Xiu, who were in the same room as him. Wang Xiu didn't act strangely with him these past few days, but Sun Xiu was always sneaky and evasive. Don't slander me. Sun Xiu was furious. Xiao Lulang calmly said, You were the one who spread the rumors about the brothel, right? Sun Xiu's face paled. You. Don't talk nonsense. Don't slander me. What brothel rumors? I've never heard of them. Xiao Liulang's expression didn't change as he said, Sirhan already said it was you. Sun Xiu suddenly froze. He didn't dare to look for Sirhan to confront him. Xiao Lulang saw the look in his eyes and knew the answer in his heart. He faintly looked at Sun Xiu and said, Sun Xiu, do more work and stop spreading rumors. After saying that, he ignored him and walked past him. Sun Xiu was reprimanded by a country bumpkin and felt indignant. He turned around and called out to him, I spread rumors? What rumors did I spread? Didn't you secretly meet with the girls from Immortal Music House yesterday? You guys dared to do it in public. You're simply shameless. Girls from Immortal Music House? Xiao Lulang stopped and looked at Sun Xiu strangely. What Immortal Music House? Immortal Music House was a brothel that had only emerged in the last 3 years, but it had already reached the position of the leader, even suppressing Soft Jade Pavilion. Sun Xiu panicked and secretly scolded himself for spilling the beans. Thinking about it, it didn't make sense. Why did he talk to those 2 girls? But he didn't know they were from Immortal Music House. They clearly looked like they were having an affair. How could Sun Xiu know that they only asked Xiao Lulang for directions and didn't say anything about their origins? Xiao Lulang didn't remember this matter at all, so he didn't guess that they were 2 passers-by. Xiao Lulang strangely looked at Sun Xiu and didn't talk nonsense with him. He turned around and returned to the office. Editor Sun carefully took out a wooden plaque that was painted with red paint. On the wooden tablet, there were 3 words written in cinnabar, Immortal Music House. The 2 girls had carelessly dropped it and Sun Xiu had walked over to pick it up. Otherwise, he wouldn't have known that they were from Immortal Music House. How could Xiao Lulang, this kind of poor boy, have a relationship with the famous Immortal Music House? This made Sun Xiu endlessly jealous. He had intended to hand over this tablet as evidence that Xiao Lulang was hanging around the brothel, but he was reluctant to do so. After hours, Sun Xiu took the tablet and went to Immortal Music House. Immortal Music House was located southeast of Qingfenglu and was only 100 steps away on foot. It had the reputation of an immortal palace, not only because it was decorated like an immortal palace, but also because every girl inside was as beautiful as a fairy. And its courtesan was called Chang-yi of the Moon Palace. Inside the carriage, Xinxiu changed out of his official robe and wore a navy blue brocade robe. He was about the same age as Ning Ziyuan in his early 30s. His appearance was much better than Ning Ziyuan's, and he was a handsome young master. Immortal Music House was a place where ordinary people couldn't enter. Money wasn't easy to use. It wasn't that they didn't accept money, but that money wasn't enough. Editor Tsin handed the token to the female guard at the door with a tentative attitude. Who knew that he really went in? The one who led the way was a girl who was as beautiful as the moon. The girl smiled sweetly and said, "So it's Sister Qianxue's distinguished guest. Please come to the room." Xinxiu was flattered. He looked at the girl in front of him and couldn't help but smile. "The rumors are true. You really are as beautiful as a fairy." The girl heard him and laughed. "I'm not a girl in the house. I'm just a servant girl." Ah! Xinxiu was shocked. A servant girl was so beautiful. How beautiful would the girls in the house be? As soon as he thought about it, he heard the little servant girl who led the way smile and greet him. "Miss Lan Xian." Editor Tsin raised his head when he heard this. A beautiful woman dressed in purple slowly walked down the steps. Her skirt fluttered across the wooden steps, and her figure seemed to touch a purple glow. She was elegant and outstanding, and her smile was brimming with radiance. Xinxiu felt that his soul was about to leave his body. He held the handrail of the stairs and almost knelt on the ground because of his weak legs. How shameless! Miss Lan Xian sneered and went down the stairs. Her cold smile revealed endless charm, but it was charming and extraordinary, making people's hearts sway. The little servant girl said, "Young master, please." The little servant girl led Xinxiu to the room. "Miss Qianxue, your guest is here. Please come in." A voice that sounded like the sound of nature came from inside. It was indescribably quiet and ethereal. Xinxiu only heard the voice and felt his whole body go limp. He didn't know how he walked into the room. By the time he reacted, the door was already closed. It was the girl he saw yesterday. The girl was holding the token that she had lost and recovered. She raised her hand and took off the veil on her face. Xinxiu only took one look and even stopped breathing. What did he mean by as beautiful as a fairy? This was the real Nine Palaces Moon Fairy. Despite his knowledge and experience as a Hanlin Academy editor, he couldn't find a suitable word to describe the beauty of the girl in front of him. "Who are you?" After the girl saw Xinxiu's face clearly, her eyes turned cold and she put the veil back on her face. Xinxiu came back to his senses and thought that she was asking about his background. He quickly bowed and said, "I'm Xinguangjie. Greetings, Miss Qianxue." The girl asked with a smile, "Why is the token in your hands?" Xinxiu was dazzled by her smile. His heart was beating wildly, and he said with a red face, "Mrs. Token was lost. I accidentally picked it up and recognized that it was from Immortal Music House. That's why I brought it here." "Ah, you personally picked it up?" The girl smiled slightly. "Did anyone else see it?" Xinxiu shook his head. "No." The girl lowered her head and smiled. "Why did you trouble yourself to bring it here?" "How embarrassing." Xinxiu said shyly, "It's a small matter. It's not worth mentioning." The girl said with a smile, "But you saw my appearance. It's enough to mention." "Huh?" Xinxiu was stunned. However, without waiting for him to react, the girl's face turned cold. "Drag him out and kill him." Xinxiu's whole body trembled. Ant didn't come out. His mouth was covered by a black-clothed man, and he was dragged out like a sack. "It's so dirty." The girl threw the token in her hand to the ground in disgust. Her personal maid hurriedly used a copper basin to fetch water. "Mississippi." The girl fiercely dipped the hand that had touched the token into the water and angrily said, "I'm so angry. I'm so angry. What a mess of a stinky man." Why didn't he pick it up? Why did he let others pick it up? Her personal maid sighed. Yes, it's a pity that Mrs. Good intentions were wasted. You deliberately dropped a token for him, but he turned a blind eye and walked away, letting others take advantage of you. Digression. No Lulang? Yes. Liulang's peach blossom? No. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/112264524. HTML Genius will remember this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 300. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are available here. Xiao Lulang didn't know anything about the token. Naturally, he didn't know that Editor Tsun would take the token to Immortal Music House. That was a veritable brothel. The Qinglu Yamen, such as the Hamlin Academy, could never step in without permission. Who would have thought that Editor Tsun would be so bold? However, for the next 2 days, Editor Tsun didn't come to Hamlin Academy for duty, nor did he send anyone to ask for leave. On the first day, everyone was puzzled, but they didn't think of the worst. They only thought that he might be sick or that something urgent had happened at home, so he couldn't report to Hamlin Academy. The second day was the same. Editor Yang had the mentality that he used to be my subordinate, so he sent someone to Editor Tsun's home. Editor Tsun was an ordinary scholarly family in the capital. Father Tsun was a scholar who opened a private school to support the family. Mother Tsun was a concubine's daughter from an old official's family, so she had some family property. The Tsun family wasn't considered wealthy in the capital, but they had a house to live in and servants to order around. Unexpectedly, the Tsun family also planned to go to Hamlin Academy to find Editor Cian. They thought that Editor Tsun was on duty at Hamlin Academy. This kind of situation had happened before. The busiest time in Hamlin Academy was when Editor Tsun didn't return home for 3 days. But this time, it was obviously not the case. Both parties immediately reported to the authorities. The authorities solved the case very quickly, or perhaps the case itself wasn't that difficult. They found Editor Tsun's body in the corner of Immortal Music House's West Gate. We've seen many cases like this. Another person who wanted to sneak into Immortal Music House was beaten to death as a thief. Immortal Music House's threshold was high. Ordinary people couldn't enter, but it couldn't stop people from having wishful thinking. Coincidentally, Immortal Music House's West Gate was a place where sundries were piled up. The guards of Immortal Music House weren't to be trifled with. Coming uninvited was a thief, so they would be beaten to death. The Tsun family didn't believe it, and Hamlin Academy didn't believe it. However, Editor Tsun had indeed changed out of his Hamlin Academy uniform and was wearing a newly made navy blue brocade robe. He had also shaved his beard. It was obvious that he was going to meet someone important. Perhaps they put it on him after they killed him. The Tsun family said, killing an official of the imperial court was different from killing an ordinary person. However, this conjecture was quickly denied because the government constables found the carriage driver that Tsun Xiu had hired that day. The coachman explained that when Tsun Weixiu got on the carriage, he was wearing Hamlin Academy's official robes. After getting off the carriage, he changed his clothes and shaved his beard. I sent him to the Cool Breeze Inn. After that, I saw him go in the direction of the Celestial Music House. With this, Tseng Xiu's path and purpose were basically determined. Moreover, with Sung Xiu's identity, it was indeed impossible for him to openly enter the immortal music residence. In that case, the only way was to climb over the wall. The people of Immortal Music House didn't know that he was an official of the imperial court and only thought that he was an ordinary lecher. Naturally, they didn't hold back. This kind of matter could be brought to court. After all, they had killed someone. No matter what, Immortal Music House had to take some responsibility. However, in this way, Sung Xiu's reputation would be completely ruined. In the end, Immortal Music House gave some consolation money and ended this matter. Paper can't wrap fire. The news of Sung Xiu being beaten to death in a brothel still spread within the Hanlin Academy. Although no one talked about it openly, they were all discussing it in private. You guys say, why would such an upright person like Sung Xiu suddenly go to a brothel? Could it be that he was instigated by Xiao Xiu? In our Hanlin Academy, apart from him, no one else had an affair with a brothel girl. Shu, lower your voice. Scholar Han, you are not allowed to discuss this matter. Did I say anything wrong? The day before Sung Xiu disappeared, I saw him talking to Xiao Xiu. I don't know what they said. They were very emotional. Just as they were discussing this, Xiao Lulang walked over from not far away. They instantly fell silent. After exchanging glances, they each scattered. However, Xiao Lulang heard everything that he should have heard. Of course, he didn't instigate Sung Xiu. However, when a person was ostracized, even breathing was wrong. Ever since he made up his mind to marry his precious granddaughter to Royal Princeton, Grand Secretary Yuan had people gather the poetry collections that Royal Prince had left outside over the years. He carefully looked through them. He was indeed a talented and ambitious person. Many of the poems that had been passed down to this day were written when he was a hostage in the Chun country. Although he was still young and inexperienced, he was in a foreign land, shouldering the lifeline of a country, enduring humiliation, and still having such youthful, lofty sentiments. He was indeed a rare talent. Grand Secretary Yuan had people deliver the poetry collections to his granddaughter. He understood that his granddaughter was talented and arrogant. She didn't like ordinary people, but a gifted scholar like Royal Prince and should be able to enter her eyes. Grand Secretary Yuan didn't know that the little Taoist nun's face was as black as charcoal when she saw the poems on the table. Why did he want her to read poems? She only wanted to read novels. All right. Speaking of which, it had already been so long. Why hadn't the third book of Chronicles of the Cloud Court come out yet? Wasn't it supposed to be one book a month? It had already been 1 month and 3 days. Had he become arrogant? In Jadewater Alley, the old chancellor had just finished writing the last word when he put down his brush and sneezed fiercely. Achoo! He had just taken over the directorate, so his salary wasn't high. The main reason was that all his savings had been robbed by the old matriarch, and he wanted to get a new carriage in order to cope with his increasing expenses. He had no choice but to return to his old profession and write novels. He hadn't written for many years. His previous pen name had long been forgotten, so he used a new pen name, Zui Shengmengdi. Just hearing it made one feel very emotional. His first comeback novel told the story of a sick and weak hostage of an enemy country who caused chaos in the imperial court and a love and hate relationship with a princess of the Great Xia dynasty. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, he indicated at the beginning that this was a dream of the hostage. However, even so, it still made people unable to stop chasing after it. The first 2 books sold very well, and he made a small profit. The third book should have been handed in a long time ago, but there had been a lot of things to do at the directorate recently, so he had delayed it. In order to express his apology, he decided to personally send the original manuscript to the study room that he was working with. Today, the little nun also went to the study room to rush the manuscript. The old chancellor couldn't help but prick up his ears to listen. Behind the bookshelf, the page boy was introducing other novels to the little nun. The little nun flipped through a few books in boredom and said, "Not good. It's not as exciting as the story of Zui Shengmengdi." The old chancellor thought that she would say that his story had new ideas, but unexpectedly, she said that it was exciting. The old chancellor cleared his throat. It seemed quite exciting. The little nun said, "The part where the princess royal divorced the prince consort was quite good. The princess of the imperial family shouldn't have suffered such grievances." The princess royal was actually just an unremarkable supporting character in the novel. The plot about her wasn't written in detail, and the divorce of the prince consort was only briefly mentioned. He didn't expect her to have such a deep impression. She was a soulmate. The old chancellor coughed lightly and couldn't help but have some interest in communicating with the other party. Perhaps he might be able to find more inspiration. This Taoist priest also likes this book? The little nun said, "It's okay. The writing is passable." The old chancellor thought, "I'm the chancellor of the directorate, but I'm only passable in writing?" However, in order to lower the threshold of the audience, he did deliberately weaken his writing style and added a large amount of vernacular to ensure that it was easy to understand. However, in order to cater to the aesthetic of scholars, he also added a lot of original poems. Usually, this kind of part would be skipped by ordinary people and wouldn't affect the progress of the plot. The old chancellor asked again, "What do you think of the character Prince Li?" Prince Li was the main character in the book, the sickly hostage who subverted the entire Great Xia dynasty. The little nun curled her lips and casually flipped through a novel she took off from a shelf. "He's good at scheming, but not at love. He's blind." The old chancellor. The little nun sighed. He doesn't want the great general of Great Xia and wants the sixth princess. If he's not blind, then what is? He's so black-hearted and sickly. He and the mighty and cold General Fu are a match made in heaven. Doesn't he see that General Fu is infatuated with him? The old chancellor's mouth twitched. When did General Fu become infatuated with Prince Li? Why didn't I know? The little nun sighed. And the Empress of Great Xia? She's also blind. How can she like the Emperor of Great Xia when concubine Hua is so good to her? Isn't it good to be together with concubine Hua? Concubine Hua flirted with her so many times. The old chancellor. No, concubine Hua didn't flirt with her. Concubine Hua and the Empress have a pure superior subordinate relationship. No, miss. No, Taoist. How did you read the book? What did you see? Concubine Hua and the Empress of Great Xia are mortal enemies. They both stabbed each other in the heart. Wait, that's not the point. The point is that they are both women. General Fu and Prince Li are both men. You. Is it okay for a little girl like you to have such a strong taste? The old chancellor's heart was pierced by thousands of arrows. He felt that he could no longer look at this book in the eye, in the blink of an eye. It was June, and summer had completely arrived in the capital. Last winter, the capital was exceptionally cold. This year, it was exceptionally hot. Because some daughters fainted in class, the girls' school even had a few days off. The news of the little nun of the Yuan family returning to the capital quickly spread in the capital. But what really made the news was the marriage between the little nun and Princeton. It was said that Grand Tutor Zhuang intended to marry the Yuan family and had already sent someone to collect the marriage invitation. After the marriage invitation, as long as the two's birth characters did not clash, the marriage could be discussed. This year, the little nun of the Yuan family was not the only daughter to be discussed. Zhuang Yueshi, Du Xiaoyan, Gu Jinyu, and the other daughters were all of marriageable age. Their families had already started to deal with it. Gu Jinyu also ended her life at Ciyu Zhuang and returned to the manor to wait for the marriage arranged by old Madame Gu and concubine Shu. Old Madame Gu furrowed her white eyebrows when she saw that Gu Nianji was tanned and looked haggard. How did you end up like this? Didn't you say that you were only going to stay at the manor for a few days? What have you done? How can I bring you out in this state? Gu Jinyu did not speak. She did not curry favor with old Madame Gu like before. Old Madame Gu was furious and said impatiently, "Don't go out these few days. Stay in the boudoir and recuperate." Gu Jinyu said softly, "I want to visit mother." It would have been better if she did not mention this. Now that she mentioned it, old Madame Gu was furious. That damned Yao Shi used her to deal with concubine Ling and moved out of the manor. When others asked her, She could only vaguely say that she moved back with Gu Yan. The noble ladies and daughters in the capital thought that Yao Shi and Gu Yan moved back to the manor to recuperate and did not say anything. They knew that Gu Yan's health was not good. Hearing that Gu Jinyu wanted to visit Yao Shi, old Madame Gu naturally did not allow it. You're not allowed to go anywhere. If you still think of yourself as the daughter of the Marquis's estate, then stay in the manor obediently. Yes, Gu Jinyu respectfully responded. But although she agreed verbally, she turned around and secretly left the manor. Mother. She came to Jade Water Alley. After getting off the carriage, she eagerly entered the courtyard. Yao Shi was sitting in the hall playing the lottery. At this time, the children in the family had gone to school to work and had not returned yet. Gu Yan had also gone to school. Only she and Nanny Fang were idle at home. Actually, they were not idle. In the morning, Auntie Lu called her over to help her daughter embroider a wedding dress. In the afternoon, the Wan family's maidservants came to ask for guidance on needlework and cooking. The Wan family's maidservants had just left. Her days were quite fulfilling. The baby in her belly was growing day by day. She could already feel the fetal movement. Occasionally, she would miss Gu Jinyu. But when she heard that she had gone to the manor outside the city to relax, she could not call her back. Hearing a familiar voice, she paused. Just as she was about to turn around, Gu Jinyu had already walked over. He planned to throw himself into her arms as usual, but he suddenly saw her slightly bulging belly. When the weather became hot, it was easy to show off one's belly if one wore less clothes. Yao Shi's body was thin, making her 5-month pregnant belly look very prominent. Gu Jinyu glared at her. Mother, you're back. Yao Shi smiled knowingly and took her hand. She nodded and said, Mother is pregnant. It's been 5 months. In that case, concubine Ling was pregnant when she was still in the manor. Halfway through her words, Gu Jinyu realized that she had mentioned someone she should not have mentioned. She said guiltily, Sorry, Mother. I shouldn't have mentioned that person. Concubine Ling had harmed Yao Shi for more than 10 years. Yao Shi was indeed unwilling to mention her. Yao Shi skipped this topic and patted the chair beside her. Sit down. Let Mother take a good look at you. Gu Jinyu sat down. Yao Shi raised her hand and stroked her hair. She said with heartache and shock, You've become tanned and your hands have become thicker. Have you had a hard time in the manor these past few months? Marquis Ding An's manor had many manors. There were quite a few outside the capital. Yao Shi did not know which one she had gone to. Gu Jinyu lowered her eyes and did not speak for a while, but a tear fell onto the back of Yao Shi's hand. Yao Shi immediately panicked. Jinyu, what happened to you? Gu Jinyu did not reply. Instead, she stood up and knelt in front of Yao Shi. She choked out, Mother, Jinyu was wrong. Yao Shi was completely confused by her actions. Her heart also began to panic. Get up and speak. What happened to you? Did something happen to him? Don't scare Mother. Gu Jinyu shook her head with tears in her eyes. She held onto Yao Shi's hand that was about to help her up. She sobbed and said, Mother, I've let Mother down. Yao Shi panicked. What happened to you? Second young miss is too much. Isn't it just not visiting Madam for a while? Madam is your mother. Would she mind this? Granny Fang walked out of the kitchen with a smile. In her hands was a plate of fried peanuts. She said to Yao Shi, Wasn't Madam craving for this just now? It's done. A pregnant person did not have any resistance to food. Her attention was immediately drawn over. She said to Gu Jinyu, You also have a taste. Granny Fang placed the peanuts on a small stool to the side and helped Gu Jinyu up. The floor is cold. Madam understands that second young miss is being filial. There is no need to blame yourself. Is second young miss living well in the manor? I see that second young miss has grown taller. Her body is not as thin and her face is not as pale. Gu Jinyu's original thinness was all thanks to Consort Chu. He did not eat sweet food or fatty food, making him look weak and frail. Now, although he was a little darker and his skin was a little rougher, It was true that he was a little rounder. Yao Shi took a look and found that it was true. Gu Jinyu was interrupted by Granny Fong and could not continue to confess to Yao Shi. She followed Granny Fong's words and said, "I miss Mother too much. I haven't come to see Mother for so long. I didn't even know that Mother was pregnant. I'm really unfilial." Yao Shi sighed. "So it was because of that. You scared me to death. I thought that something had happened. I don't blame you. But why did you suddenly go to live in the manor? Are you unhappy at the Marquis's estate?" "No." Gu Jinyu lowered her head. Gu Jinyu lowered his eyes. "That place is very close to Father's residence. I can go over and keep Father company." "I see." The relationship between father and daughter was very good. Yao Shi did not suspect anything. The mother and daughter chatted for a while. Granny Fong kept them company. Later on, Yao Shi was tired and went to take an afternoon nap. Granny Fong then brought Gu Jinyu to the front yard and said to Gu Jinyu, "Second young miss, no matter what you wanted to say to Madam, I hope that you will not say it again." Gu Jinyu was stunned. Granny Fong said, "Madam suffers from very serious depression. It was not easy for eldest young miss to cure her. This servant does not wish for Madam to fall ill again. Furthermore, Madam is pregnant now. She cannot be provoked." I did not think it through. Gu Jinyu lowered her head sadly. "I originally wanted to apologize to Mother. I did something that let elder sister down. I stole elder sister's credit and caused elder sister to be hurt. I don't want to hide it from Mother anymore." Granny Fong naturally knew about these things, but she did not expect Gu Jinyu to have the courage to admit it. Digression, little Taoist nun, you can't do anything. You are the best at tearing apart couples. Old Chancellor, I am not Consort Hua. Zhuang Jins is also not the Empress of Disya. If she is not, then she is not. Asterisk, asterisk, caret, asterisk, asterisk. Then, may I ask what the name of the Empress of Disya is? Old Chancellor, say Jin Zhuang. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896/112240096. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 301. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. When Gu Jiao returned to Bishui Alley, Gu Jinyu had already left. Nanny Fong had been guarding the door. When she saw her return, she hurriedly went forward and told her about Gu Jinyu's visit. "I know." Gu Jiao nodded. Nanny Fong noticed her stiffness and asked worriedly, "Eldest miss, what's wrong?" "I'm fine," Gu Jiao said. Today, she met a tough opponent at the martial arts center. Her arm was actually numb. She hadn't met such an interesting opponent for a long time. Looking at Second Miss's appearance today, she seems to be sincerely repentant. Nanny Fong said thoughtfully, "What did she experience at the farmstead that made her change so much?" Gu Jiao paused and said, "She didn't go to the farmstead. She went to CIU farmstead." Nanny Fong was surprised. "Eldest miss has seen her before?" "Yes, I happened to see her once." Gu Jiao told her about her visit last time. She actually went to that kind of place to suffer. Nanny Fong suddenly didn't know what to say. Nanny Fong had watched Gu Jinyu grow up. Nanny Fong could tell whether she was sincerely remorseful or putting on an act. Second Miss seemed to have really changed. Then, would eldest miss forgive her? Gu Jiao didn't say anything and stepped into the house. After June, the sky turned dark late. When Xiao Lulang returned from Hamlin Academy, the sky was still bright. Little Jing Kong went for a walk with chickens. Gu Jiao was arranging rooms for people next door. Before the old lady regained her memory, in order to make it easier to rob the old chancellor of his private money, she asked the old chancellor to connect the two houses and open a door on the wall of the backyard. As soon as Xiao Lulang arrived at the backyard, he saw Gu Jiao carrying several clean mattresses over. He stopped her. "Is there a guest at home?" Gu Jiao said, "It's Gu Yan's secret guards." Not only had they arrived, but they had also brought Yu Ya from the hot spring villa. This was Gu Jiao's order. Gu Yan had lived in the farmstead for so long, but the only servant he hadn't chased out was Yu Ya. Even Nanny Fang had been chased out by him once. There were more and more things to do at home. Gu Jiao thought that it would be good to have a clever maid. Fortunately, there were many empty rooms next door. After the two families were connected, they could be considered one family. Thus, senior servant Fang had already moved in and didn't have to squeeze in the same room as Madame Yao. Xiao Lulang also helped to move some things. The two secret guards were usually nowhere to be seen. Yuya was at the scene the entire time. It was her first time seeing Xiao Lulang. She was so excited that her eyes almost popped out. Yaya. Was this the son-in-law? Son-in-law is so handsome. Gu Jiao tilted her head. Oh, I think so too. Yuya's explicit praise didn't affect Xiao Lulang, but Gu Jiao's understated words made Xiao Lulang's heart feel strange. He cleared his throat and said calmly, "I'll go see if the people from Jing Kong are back yet." After saying that, he turned around and left. Looking at his strange walking posture, Yuya quietly moved closer to Gu Jiao and asked with an indescribable expression, "But eldest miss, why does the son-in-law walk with his hands and feet in the same direction?" There was no need to learn martial arts today. When Gu Yan returned from Qinghe Academy, he saw the secret guards and Yuya, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. "Young master, do you still remember this servant?" Yuya asked happily. He had almost forgotten Yuya's name. After a long time, he frowned and said, "Bean Sprout." Yuya's face darkened. All of a sudden, everyone came back. After dinner, Xiao Lulang checked the children's homework as usual. He didn't bring his experience in Hamlin Academy back home. He restrained himself and tidied up his emotions. He patiently tutored little Jing Kong, who had been arguing with him the entire time, as well as Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun, who had been daydreaming all night. At night, when everyone was asleep, he took out the ancient book and continued to study the formulas. Gu Jiao gently pushed open the unlocked door. "Can I come in?" "Come in," Xiao Lulang said. Gu Jiao pushed open the door and entered with a bowl of lotus seed soup in her hand. The weather was hot, so the lotus seed soup had been chilled with well water to cool down and relieve the heat. Xiao Lulang was wearing thin pajamas. Because he had sweated a little, the pajamas stuck to his body and inadvertently outlined the contours of his body. His young body exuded a vigorous masculinity that perfectly combined with his youthful aura. Gu Jiao's eyes grew on his body. Xiao Lulang coughed softly and said, "It's so late. Why aren't you asleep?" Gu Jiao placed the lotus seed soup beside his hand. "Lotus seed soup. Xiao Lulang, have you eaten?" Gu Jiao shook her head. "Xiao Lulang, then do you want to what? Eat together? Or do you want to eat first? There was only a bowl and a spoon." "You eat." Xiao Lulang quickly pushed the bowl in front of her. Gu Jiao sat down in front of him and looked at him with her chin in her hands. "I don't want to eat. I made it for you." If Xiao Lulang continued to refuse, it would be inexcusable. He paused, took the bowl, and tasted it gently. The bitter lotus seed heart was picked, and mint and osmanthus sugar were added. It was cool and sweet, but not greasy. "Is it delicious?" Gu Jiao asked. "It's delicious," he said. Gu Jiao curved her lips. Xiao Lulang finished the bowl of lotus seed soup. Gu Jiao kept looking at him with her chin in her hands. Actually, the weather was hot, and she didn't wear much. She wore a thin summer shirt over her pajamas. She didn't grow much in the past 2 months, but her figure became more exquisite. Xiao Lulang swore that he didn't mean to peek, but she was sitting in front of him. He inadvertently glanced at her. Gu Jiao's lapel was slightly open, revealing a small section of pink undergarment lace. This was supposed to be a normal attire, but in the darkness of the night, it gave off a sense of privacy and charm. "Why are you sweating?" Gu Jiao tilted her head and asked, "Is the lotus seed soup not cold enough?" It was strange that he could sweat while eating something cold. Xiao Lulang didn't know how to explain. He wasn't just sweating. His heart was beating faster. This had nothing to do with the feelings between a man and a woman. It was purely a man's instinct. In the middle of the night, a man and a woman alone. She was so gentle and quiet. Although this girl was very likely to be an irritable kitten who liked to explode, she was too deceptive at this moment, just when Xiao Lulang didn't know how to answer. Gu Jiao suddenly stood up and leaned towards him across the table. The distance between them was shortened. Her warm breath and fragrance assailed his nostrils. The pink undergarment lace was right in front of his eyes. He quickly closed his eyes, but the blood rushed to his head in an instant. Gu Jiao gently wiped his sweat. He still didn't dare to open his eyes. Suddenly, he heard Gu Jiao chuckle softly. Then, the sound of clothes sliding could be heard. "The clothes are done. You can open your eyes now." This. Xiao Lulang suddenly didn't know whether to open his eyes or not. Gu Jiao couldn't stop laughing. If she wasn't afraid of waking up little Jing Kong, she would have laughed out loud. Xiao Lulang didn't feel the shadow in front of him leave for a long time. He could still smell her fragrance and breath. He was a normal man. It was impossible for him to be indifferent when a woman was so close to him in the middle of the night. He took a deep breath. He wanted to tell her to go back to her room and rest. Before he could say anything, he heard her say, "Look, what's outside the window?" He turned his head, opened his eyes, and looked at the moonlight outside the window. Everything was as usual. "There's nothing," he said as he turned his head. At this moment, Gu Jiao supported herself on the table and moved forward. When Xiao Lulang turned his head, he saw Gu Jiao's movement. However, it was too late for him to avoid it. "Jiao Jiao," little Jing Kong's sleepy voice suddenly sounded from inside the curtain. Gu Jiao retreated. Xiao Luolang's lips touched the air. He wanted to avoid it when he couldn't, but if he really avoided it, Gu Jiao came to the bedside and lifted the curtain. Little Jing Kong didn't wake up, but he seemed to want to pee. He covered his little butt and said, "Jiao Jiao, let me do it." Xiao Lulang came over and carried the half-asleep little guy to the backyard to pee. Some things couldn't be continued once they were interrupted. Xiao Lulang put the little guy back on the bed. The weather was too hot. Little Jing Kong only wore a small red doo-doo and slept on the mat. Xiao Lulang closed the curtain and said to Gu Jiao, "It's getting late. Go back to your room and rest." Gu Jiao said, "Oh." She took the bowl out, washed it, and went back to the east room. Xiao Luolang's mind kept flashing with images that he shouldn't have. It took him a lot of effort to calm down. He forced himself to study for an hour. He thought that he could clear his mind and reduce his desires. However, as soon as he put down the book, the thoughts that he shouldn't have had came back again. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1122374331. HTML Genius. Remember the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 302. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. What's wrong with me? Although I've been restless before, I've quickly suppressed it. This time, this feeling of not being able to control himself made Xiao Lulang feel at a loss, and even a bit irritated. Could it be that after reading so many sage books, in the end, he only became a beast? He shook his head and forced himself to get rid of these distracting thoughts from his mind. The effect was not satisfactory. It was as if the more he forced himself to suppress it, the more it was like boiling lava, burning his entire chest until it was boiling hot. In the end, he had no choice but to get up and go to the ancient well in the back courtyard to get a bucket of water and take a cold shower. Gu Jiao, on the other hand, was much more heartless. It was true that she teased him, and it was not false that she slept with him after teasing him. A certain person fell asleep with her head against the pillow. However, she was destined to not sleep well. She had a dream again. She dreamed of Xiao Lulang, who was an official in the Hanlin Academy. Xiao Lulang was from a humble family and had defeated Royal Prince unto become the new top scorer. Many people were jealous and envious of him. The Hanlin Academy was also Imperial Tutor Zhuang's territory. It was easy to imagine his situation there. However, gold would always shine. No matter how his colleagues tried to suppress and ostracize Xiao Lulang still had a chance to display his intelligence. However, it was not in the Hanlin Academy, but in the Ministry of Justice. It turned out that there was a murder case in the Ministry of Justice. The murderer was caught by a passing Hanlin official and handed over to the Ministry of Justice. However, not long after, the murderer's family came to the Hanlin Academy and said that the Hanlin Academy had caught the wrong person. His father was not the murderer. That was a 9-year-old child. No one would believe a child's words. Only Xiao Lulang went to the Ministry of Justice. In the end, Xiao Lulang found that the child's father was not the murderer. Xiao Lulang helped the Ministry of Justice catch the real culprit and was greatly appreciated by the Minister of Justice. Now that the matter had progressed to this point, Xiao Lulang seemed to be truly successful in his career, finally seeing the light of day. But who would have thought that on his way back from the Ministry of Justice, Xiao Lulang would be hit by a young Taoist nun who fell from a building. He was knocked out, and so was the little nun. In broad daylight, a man and a woman were lying on top of each other and fainted together. Those who didn't know what was going on all thought that something had happened between the two. At that time, Xiao Lulang was wearing the official uniform of the Hanlin Academy. The news quickly spread. Xiao Luolang's reputation was ruined, and his career as an official had come to an end. When Gu Jiao woke up, she sat on the bed and hugged the quilt with a toothache. Her husband was really good at going against the current. He was smart, but he was also unlucky. Being hit by someone on the street was about the same as winning the lottery in her previous life. How could something like that happen? It was actually quite easy to avoid it. She remembered that when Xiao Lulang was leaving the Ministry of Justice, he had been stopped by a Hanlin official surnamed Yang and scolded. If it weren't for that delay, Xiao Lulang could have perfectly avoided the disaster. Gu Jiao got up before the sun rose. Xiao Lulang also got up early in the past, but he never got up earlier than Gu Jiao. Today was an exception. He was fetching water from the back courtyard. First, he fetched water from the ancient well. Then he carried buckets back to the kitchen and poured them into the water jar. Looking at his sweaty appearance, it wasn't hard to guess that he had been working for a long time. "Why are you so early? You didn't sleep last night, did you?" Gu Jiao asked in a strange tone. He had too much energy and needed to do some physical work to burn it off. Otherwise, he would be too hot. Of course, Xiao Lulang didn't say this. He said seriously, "I slept. It was a little hot, so I got up early." It was quite hot, especially since the ancient people wore a lot of clothes. Gu Jiao felt that the capital was hotter than the countryside. She slept and her pajamas were soaked in sweat. She fetched water and went back to her room to take a bath. Listening to the sound of the water, Xiao Luolang's blood was boiling in his chest. He felt that he had wasted the whole morning. Little Jing Kong didn't go to school today. He practiced martial arts in the back courtyard for a while. After breakfast, he went to play with Zhao Xiaobao next door. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun were also on vacation. They slept in their room. Gu Jiao didn't tell Xiao Lulang what she saw in her dream. She went to the medical center as usual. Xiao Lulang went to the Hanlin Academy. As soon as he entered the main entrance, he saw many Hanlin officials standing in the open space in front of the hall. The atmosphere was so intense that he didn't know what they were discussing. He always had nothing to do with the crowd. He didn't plan to join them, so he went to his office. But before he took 2 steps, he saw Ning Ziyuan at the corner of the corridor waving at him. He thought about it and went over. Ning Ziyuan pulled him to the other side of the corridor and gossiped in a low voice. "Did you hear? Royal Prince made a great contribution this morning." "Oh," Xiao Lulang answered perfunctorily. He wasn't interested. "Hiss," Ning Ziyuan gasped. "He's your opponent. Aren't you curious about what he did? You're the top scholar, and he's the second. Logically, you should be faster than him. If he's faster, well, it's normal to be faster than you. You can't beat him in terms of family background." This was the truth. A poor student might not be able to reach the starting line of others, even if he worked hard for 8 to 10 years. Some people were born at the end of their lives. But Ning Ziyuan still wanted to say, there was a murder on Beifang Street. It was reported in the middle of the night. The murderer was arrested this morning. "Royal Prince unarrested him?" Xiao Lulang asked. Ning Ziyuan said, "That's right. He was on duty. When he passed by the Ministry of Justice, he met his uncle, the Assistant Minister of the Ministry of Justice. The Assistant Minister of the Ministry of Justice told him about it. Based on the bloodstains at the scene, he led his subordinates and arrested the murderer. He can't leave the Ministry of Justice now, so he asked someone to come to Hanlin Academy and ask for leave. He said he'll come back in the afternoon. Why do you think he's so powerful? Not only was he born into a good family, he was more outstanding and hardworking than ordinary people. How could ordinary people live like this?" The entire Hanlin Academy was shocked by Royal Prince An's case. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion outside the door. "You got the wrong person. My father is not the murderer. It's not him." It was a child's voice. Xiao Lulang looked in the direction of the voice. Ning Ziyuan said, "Let's go and have a look." He thought Xiao Lulang would refuse. After all, he wasn't the kind of person who liked to watch a show. Who knew that Xiao Lulang would actually follow? There was a commotion outside the door. A child dressed in cotton clothes, less than 10 years old, was thin and small, and his clothes were messy. Perhaps because he had been running all the way, he was sweating profusely, and one of his shoes had fallen off. He tried to rush in, but was stopped by Kong Mu of Hanlin Academy. His eyes were red, but he held back his tears. "Your Hanlin Academy has caught the wrong person. My father is not the murderer. He didn't kill anyone. He was a child after all." When he heard that a Hanlin official had helped solve the case, he thought that his father had been arrested and brought to Hanlin Academy. He screamed at the top of his lungs, but no one present believed him. Kong Mu was a little impatient. "How would we know if your father is the murderer? Even if you want to make a scene, you should go to the Ministry of Justice. Hanlin Academy is not the place to hear cases." Where is the Ministry of Justice? "I finally found Hanlin Academy." The child finally couldn't hold back and cried in despair. It was obvious that he couldn't walk anymore. The soles of his feet were covered in bloody blisters. The child of a murderer. Not many people really sympathized with him. Just as he was crying uncontrollably, a tall and slender figure came in front of him. "I'll take you to the Ministry of Justice." His crying stopped abruptly. He raised his teary eyes and looked at the handsome face in disbelief. Really? Everyone looked at Xiao Lulang as if they were looking at an idiot. Helping the child of a murderer? Was he crazy? "I'll take a leave of absence," Xiao Lulang said to Kong Mu. Kong Mu was probably shocked by his behavior and didn't say a word. Xiao Lulang hired a carriage and took the child to the Ministry of Justice. The child's narrative ability was quite clear. Xiao Lulang learned from him that he had abdominal pain in the middle of the night. His father went out to find a doctor for him, but he didn't return for the whole night. The next day, he heard that his father had been arrested as the murderer. His mother had fainted. Xiao Lulang asked, "Is there anyone else in the family?" He shook his head. "No. Sir, my father wouldn't kill anyone. He really wouldn't. Believe me." Xiao Lulang only believed in evidence. If his father really was the murderer, then he had to understand that the imperial court didn't wrongly accuse anyone. If his father wasn't the murderer, then the imperial court would give his father justice. Xiao Lulang took him to the Ministry of Justice. Seeing that it was a Hanlin official, the guard of the Ministry of Justice was very polite. He took Xiao Lulang to the side hall. There, Royal Prince An was discussing the details of this case with his uncle, Assistant Minister Qin. Because the murderer wasn't willing to confess, they had to find more evidence to punish the murderer. "Sir Qin, someone from the Hanlin Academy is here," the guard reported outside the door. Assistant Minister Qin didn't understand. "Why is someone from the Hanlin Academy here?" Royal Prince An shook his head. "I don't know." He was also very confused. "Come in," Assistant Minister Qin said. Xiao Lulang walked in with the child. "It's you." Royal Prince An's brows furrowed as his gaze fell on the child. "Who is he?" "He's the suspect's son. He went to the Hanlin Academy," Xiao Lulang said in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. Assistant Minister Qin had heard about the new top scorer. Seeing that he was leaning on a cane, he guessed the other's identity. "Humph, it was this brat who stole his nephew's top scorer position?" The child said, "My father isn't the murderer. He didn't kill anyone." "Who told you to bring him in? Hurry and take him out." Assistant Minister Qin shouted harshly. Seeing that Xiao Lulang didn't move, he said coldly, "Someone come." A guard walked in and took the crying child out. Xiao Lulang looked at Royal Prince An. He didn't say a word, but Royal Prince An felt like there was a thorn in his back from his gaze. He sighed. It was already suspicious for him to appear on the street in the middle of the night. When Wu Yang found him following the bloodstains on the street, he was planning to bury the tools used to commit the crime. "My father wasn't suspicious. My stomach hurts. He went out to get a doctor for me. You're the suspicious ones. You're wrongly accusing a good person." The child's stubborn roar came from the corridor outside the door. "Can I go take a look?" Xiao Lulang asked. Normally, the Hanlin Academy couldn't interfere with the Ministry of Justice's work. Royal Prince An was purely helping his uncle. However, since he was involved, it wasn't a big deal to let Xiao Lulang take a look. The corpse was placed in the Ministry of Justice's ice cellar. Xiao Lulang first went to take a look at the corpse, then went to see the child's father. "That child's father is a butcher," Royal Prince An said to Xiao Lulang. It was as if he was telling Xiao Lulang that people who killed more often seemed to have an easier time killing people. "You've got the wrong person. The murderer isn't him," Xiao Lulang said. Assistant Minister Qin was so angry that he laughed. "You think it's not him just because you say so," Xiao Lulang said. "The wound is on the right lower abdomen of the deceased. The back of the knife is above and the blade is below. The tip of the knife is slightly tilted to the left of the back. This is an oblique stab wound. It's not easy to stab with the right hand at this angle. The murderer used his left hand to hold the knife, so his dominant hand is most likely his left hand." Royal Prince An frowned. "You're saying that he's left-handed?" Xiao Lulang nodded. Royal Prince An said, "That butcher," Xiao Lulang said, "I've tried. He's not left-handed." Royal Prince An's expression became serious. Assistant Minister Qin sneered. "What nonsense are you talking about? How could the Royal Prince catch the wrong murderer?" Assistant Minister Qin wasn't like this in the past. He was too confident in Royal Prince An and felt that as long as it was sent by Royal Prince An, it couldn't be wrong. "Are there any footprints at the scene?" Xiao Lulang asked. "Yes." Royal Prince An handed the drawing that the artist drew from the scene to Xiao Lulang. One side of the footprints is deep and the other is shallow. He should be injured. The suspect's leg is also injured. Xiao Lulang looked at the drawing and said, "This isn't an injury. He was born with a limp. The injured footprints are messy and have different depths. These footprints are very regular." Royal Prince Un was speechless. He wanted to ask how he knew. His gaze swept over the suspect's leg, and he instantly understood. There were no signs of fighting at the scene. It was more likely that the murderer was an acquaintance. Moreover, the murderer was a man about 5 feet tall. Assistant Minister Qin didn't believe it at first. However, even if he didn't believe it, there were others who believed it. Another assistant minister, surnamed Ming, brought the guards to find the murderer. According to the characteristics provided by Xiao Lulang, the murderer was arrested and brought to justice without any effort. Assistant Minister Ming's eyes were crooked from smiling. Oh my God, this was simply a merit that fell from the sky. Who would have thought that you could catch a fake murderer? He patted Assistant Minister Qin's shoulder and said with a smile, "The one who makes the first move doesn't necessarily have the upper hand, right?" Assistant Minister Qin's mouth was about to fly off. Assistant Minister Ming went to the Minister of Justice to ask for credit. Of course, he didn't forget to bring Xiao Lulang along. The Minister of Justice was very surprised. "How do you know all this? Hanlin Academy wouldn't teach this, right?" Xiao Lulang paused and said, "My eldest brother was a coroner." In order to support his mother and young Xiao Lulang, Brother Xiao gave up the opportunity to study and became a coroner. The Minister of Justice suddenly understood. He had heard about the background of this new top scorer. He heard that he came from a poor family. However, he didn't expect that he had a brother who was a coroner. The Minister of Justice asked, "Your brother is now," Xiao Lulang said in a low voice, "He passed away." The Minister of Justice didn't have a good impression of Hanlin Academy officials. Perhaps it was because he didn't enter Hanlin Academy in the beginning, so he said that grapes were sour. However, he felt that Xiao Lulang was different from those Hanlin Academy officials who thought they were a cut above the rest. He accidentally chatted with Xiao Lulang until late at night. When Xiao Lulang came out of the Ministry of Justice, it was already noon. It was around the same time as Gu Jiao predicted. On the other side, the news that Royal Prince Un had caught the wrong person had already spread to Hanlin Academy. Assistant Minister Yang angrily rushed to the Ministry of Justice. What was wrong with Xiao Lulang? Did he think that he was arrogant just because he was a little smart? He actually dared to undermine Royal Prince Un. Did he still want to work in Hanlin Academy? Why didn't he secretly suggest a plan to Royal Prince Un and slap Royal Prince Un's face in public? Assistant Minister Yang was furious. The carriage was parked in a small alley near the Ministry of Justice. As soon as Assistant Minister Yang jumped off the carriage, he was put in a gunny sack by someone. It wasn't too far from the Ministry of Justice to Hanlin Academy. The reason why he hired a carriage in the morning was because the child couldn't walk. Now, Xiao Lulang planned to walk back. He took a shortcut. When he walked through the secluded alley, he had a feeling that something was going to happen. He looked back, but didn't see anything. Strange. He suddenly had the illusion that he had survived a disaster. In a stable near the Ministry of Justice, Assistant Minister Yang was being beaten up by a gunny sack. "Help! Ow! Help! Ow! Ow! You bullied my husband! Hee!" Gu Jiao's small fists landed on his body like snowflakes. Assistant Minister Yang was beaten up to the point of doubting life. No one would believe that he had been beaten up by someone outside the Ministry of Justice's main gate. Gu Jiao was so excited from beating him up that she only remembered the important matter after a long time. She forgot that there was a little Taoist nun to save. It wouldn't be good if she fell to her death. In her dream, she didn't fall to her death because Xiao Lulang acted as a cushion for her. Now, there was no human cushion. Humph. Gu Jiao kicked Assistant Minister Yang, took back her gunny sack, and ran towards the alley where the little Taoist nun fell. Unfortunately, she was a step too late. The little Taoist nun had already slipped and fallen from the third-floor window. Gu Changqing had just come out of the barracks when he saw his little sister sneaking around the Ministry of Justice. He was curious about what the little girl was doing, so he urged his horse to go over. Halfway there, a loud noise came from above. A small figure broke through the window and fell from above. Gu Changqing's eyes moved. He flew up and caught the little girl in midair, then slowly landed back on his horse. The little Taoist nun looked at him in shock. Her eyes lit up. General Talisman? Her head tilted and she fainted. Digression. Tell me, did you write General Talisman based on Gu Changqing's appearance? Old Chancellor, cough. As long as I don't admit it, I won't. Little Taoist nun. Today is the day I bumped into a real person _. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964 HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikaj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 303. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. When the little nun opened her eyes again, she was already lying on a bed in the clinic. She froze for a moment, then remembered that she had just fallen down the stairs. She might have fallen to her death. The little nun closed her eyes. Since she was already dead, she might as well sleep. No. Suddenly, a proud young man's voice came from outside. Then, a deep and magnetic voice said, "Then let's ride a horse? Do you want to ride a horse?" What kind of beautiful voice was this? And what kind of spoiling tone was this? The little nun was so engrossed in her novel that she threw off the quilt, got out of bed, and opened the window. She saw a well-built man in dark light armor. His hair was as black as ink, and his thick eyebrows were slanted to his temples. His facial features were deep and stern, and his temperament was cold. His eyes were filled with endless tenderness and love. This was the General Fu from the novels. She looked at the young man opposite the General Fu. He wore a light blue robe, and his body was thin. His cheeks were pale and sickly, but his features were exquisite and as handsome as jade. Most importantly, his temper was especially stinky, especially black-hearted. The sickly hostage, Prince Li Yunting. Didn't she say they were a good match? The scene was so beautiful. The little nun looked at the two people under the tree and swallowed her saliva. Creak. The door was pushed open. Dr. Song came in with a bowl of medicine. Miss, you're awake? Sure, don't be noisy. The little nun stared at the two people in the courtyard. Dr. Song strangely walked forward and followed her gaze. He smiled and said, "So it's the two young masters, Gu. Miss, do you want to thank them?" "HM?" The little nun frowned and looked at him. Dr. Song thought she didn't hear him clearly, so he repeated his words with a pleasant expression. "Miss, do you want to thank them?" The first sentence. The little nun said, Dr. Song thought for a moment, then said with uncertainty, "So it's the two young masters, Gu? They're brothers?" "Yes." "Biological?" "Yes." "Oh." The little nun lowered her head. Dr. Song's face was inexplicable. "Why are you so disappointed all of a sudden?" Dr. Song checked the little nun's pulse and let her drink the medicine. After asking Dr. Song, the little Taoist nun learned that she was saved by the heir of Marquis Dingen Manor, Gu Changqing. Gu Changqing and the little Taoist nun had met once before, but the little Taoist nun hadn't taken a good look at him. Sister, Soon after Dr. Song went out, Yuan Tong came in a hurry. "Sister, are you all right? I just want to buy a box of osmanthus cakes." "How did you disappear?" "I'm dying of anxiety. Fortunately, someone came to deliver a letter, saying that you came to the medical center next to the girls' school." The letter was sent by Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing only recognized her after saving her. It wasn't that Gu Chongqing didn't take a good look at her face last time. It was just that it would be difficult to find a second Taoist nun like her in the entire capital. The little Taoist nun sat down on a chair by the window. "I'm fine. I just tripped and fell down from upstairs." "How did you suddenly fall down from upstairs?" Yuan Tong looked at the little Taoist nun. She pinched her face, then her arms and legs to make sure she was fine. The little Taoist nun said, "The room was too stuffy. I wanted to open the window to get some fresh air, but my foot suddenly slipped and I fell out of the window." Yuan Tong indignantly said, "It must be because they didn't clean the floor properly, causing sister to slip. I'll go find that tea shop later." The little Taoist nun shook her head. "Forget it. It was my own carelessness." Yuan Tong wanted to ask her sister who brought her to the medical center, but she was suddenly interrupted by a hateful voice. "Yuan Tong." Yuan Tong clenched her fingers and coldly looked out the window. Gu Chungfeng stood outside the window with his arms crossed. "Oh, it really is you." Yuan Tong gritted her teeth. "Bumblebee." Gu Chungfeng asked, "What are you doing here?" Yuan Tong chuckled. "Why do you care what I'm doing here?" Gu Chungfeng, "Are you sick?" Yuan Tong, "You have medicine." TCH. Gu Chungfeng rolled his eyes in disdain. "I'm just asking if you're sick, so I can introduce you to a reliable doctor." "Chungfeng, don't be rude." Gu Chongqing was startled by the quarrel. The little Taoist nun stood up and slowly bowed to Gu Chongqing. "Many thanks for saving my sister, Master Gu." Gu Chungfeng looked at Yuan Tong proudly. "Did you see that? My big brother saved your sister." Yuan Tong's words were stuck in her throat. She glared at Gu Chungfeng. Childish. The little Taoist nun was fine. After resting for a while, she paid the consultation fee and left with her sister. Gu Yen wouldn't talk to the Gu brothers, so he returned to Gu Jiao's courtyard. Gu Chungfeng habitually walked towards Gu Jiao's courtyard, but Gu Yen blocked the door. "This is my sister's courtyard." Gu Chungfeng snorted. "So what if you have a sister?" Gu Yen, "Of course you do. If you have the ability, you can have a sister too." He didn't have a sister. He would never have one in this lifetime. At most he had forget it. That girl wasn't even the Gu family's daughter. In another room, Gu Chongqing and Gu Jiao talked about the recent news. "The assassin who set me up at the military camp that night should still be in the capital. Tang Ming is also investigating the whereabouts of that power." Tang Ming and Gu Chongqing had a common enemy, so they temporarily abandoned their opposing positions and worked together to investigate the truth of that power. In the end, they really did find some clues. Immortal Music House. Gu Chongqing said, "That person is related to Immortal Music House." "What's Immortal Music House?" Gu Jiao had never heard of it. Gu Chongqing hesitated, but still said, "It's a brothel." "Oh." Gu Jiao was very calm. She didn't have the bashful reaction of a normal girl when hearing about a brothel. "It's definitely not possible to investigate openly. It's easy to alert the enemy and make a secret investigation." Gu Chongqing didn't set foot in that kind of place, but if it was necessary to solve a case, he couldn't care less. Gu Jiao understood and asked, "Is it hard to enter a secret investigation?" Gu Chongqing, "Do you know who's behind Immortal Music House?" Gu Jiao, "Who?" Gu Chongqing, "The Empress Dowager." Gu Jiao's brows wrinkled. "Great Aunt." Gu Chongqing nodded. Gu Jiao shook her head. Great Aunt would not harm the Tang family, nor would she assassinate Tang Ming. She would also not provoke discord between the Marquis Ding and Fu and the marshals, Fu at this time. Gu Chongqing was deep in thought. That's where the problem lies. Originally, the Marquis Ding and Fu and the marshals, Fu belonged to different camps. There was no need to provoke them, unless that person felt there was a need to provoke them. Jiao Jiao. Gu Chongqing looked at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao also looked at him. "And," Gu Chongqing sternly said, "although the matter of you inventing the bellows and mortar was not announced to the public, there were still people who knew it was you. You received the emperor's appreciation, and you also received the empress dowager's protection." Gu Jiao thought for a bit. "So that person felt that the two of them would make peace because of me." This idea was simply too naive. Even if Gu Jiao did not deliberately inquire, she knew that her great-aunt and the emperor had already fought over 100 rounds in the palace. Although Gu Chongqing knew that his sister was highly regarded by the two, he did not believe that they would let go of their many years of enmity. More importantly, your relationship with the emperor and the empress dowager is not known by the common people. Even in the palace, there are not many people who know. Gu Jiao said, "But that person knew." Gu Chongqing said, "That's right." Gu Jiao picked up a tea leaf. There was a traitor by great-aunt's side. Gu Chongqing analyzed. The Empress Dowager's leprosy in the past should also be related to this person. Although it was the emperor who did it, the success must have been due to this person's help. So I was thinking that the power behind Immortal Music House was not the Empress Dowager, but it was someone that the Empress Dowager was willing to protect. Gu Jiao's gaze turned cold. It was also someone who betrayed great-aunt. The news that Xiao Lulang solved a case for the Ministry of Justice quickly reached the emperor's ears. The emperor was busy dealing with Empress Dowager Zhuang these days and forgot that he had a new top scorer in the Hanlin Academy. Working for Imperial Tutor Zhuang, he must have been bullied a lot. The emperor suddenly felt ashamed. How could he have forgotten the person he promoted? Fortunately, that child was sturdy enough and was not abused to death by Imperial Tutor Zhuang. The emperor reached out to make it easier for a palace maid to dress him. Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei said, "This servant is here." The emperor said, "Is it the Hanlin Academy's turn to give a lecture to the crown prince today?" Eunuch Wei smiled. "Yes, is it still inviting Scholar Han? Your Majesty should go to the morning court first. This servant will send someone to invite him." The emperor said, "No, call Xiao Lulang over." Eunuch Wei was shocked. "Your Majesty, Xiao Lulang is only a scholar." To give a lecture to the crown prince, it was usually the highest-ranking official of the Hanlin Academy who personally appeared. At the very least, it would be a lecturer or a reading attendant. How could they let a new scholar take the stage? Then it will be him. The emperor had made up his mind. Eunuch Wei could only brace himself. Yes. Digression. Good morning. Are there any more monthly tickets? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/8964-2_89642826/112207246. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 304. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The princes of the imperial palace of an appropriate age had to go to the study every day to study. The study was located in a side hall of the throne room. In the country of Zhao, only third-rank officials and above had the right to go to the throne room for morning court. Therefore, teaching the princes was the only opportunity for officials below third rank to set foot in the throne room. But they still couldn't enter from the front door. Xiao Lulang was led by Eunuch Wei to the throne room from the side. They walked through the corridor and arrived outside the study. The other princes have already finished their homework. You will be teaching the crown prince alone. Eunuch Wei reminded him. The princes and the crown prince had classes together. The teachers were all highly respected officials. The difference was that the crown prince had more work to do than the other princes. After the princes finished their classes, he still had to continue. The crown prince had classes with the teachers in the morning. In the afternoon, he had classes with the emperor. He was occasionally sent out for training. The only prince who didn't need to attend classes was the eldest son, Ning Wang. When Xiao Lulang arrived outside the upper study, he coincidentally bumped into the princes coming out. The third prince, Rui Wang, had a sickly complexion. It was clear that he was having a hard time in class. The fourth prince was distinguished and elegant, light and indifferent. It looked like he knew everything. The fifth and sixth princes had serious expressions. It was unknown if the homework was too difficult or something else. Xiao Lulang bowed slightly. He didn't look sideways. He was neither servile nor overbearing. Eunuch Wei bowed to the princes. Rui Wang stopped and asked, "Eunuch Wei, who is this?" Eunuch Wei smiled and said, "Replying to your highness Rui Wang, this is Xiao Xiuzhua from the Hanlin Academy. Today, he will be teaching the crown prince." So young. Rui Wang's eyes widened. He didn't say his rank was so low. In comparison, his rank was nothing. This teacher looked like he was only 17 or 18 years old. He was already teaching the crown prince? And he looked so familiar. Rui Wang stared at Xiao Liulang's face. Xiao Lulang calmly let him look. After all, Rui Wang was not the crown prince, and was not close to the young Marquis of Zhaodu for a while. He could not see that Xiao Lulang resembled him. "Third brother, are we leaving or not? Didn't you say you were going to bring me and fourth brother to your residence to play?" The sixth prince urged. Coming. Rui Wang didn't think about Xiao Lulang anymore and left in a hurry. "Xiao Xiuzhua, please." Eunuch Wei gestured. Xiao Lulang stepped inside. His younger brothers had all finished their lessons, and he was the only one who stayed behind to continue learning. The crown prince was already somewhat unhappy, and when he saw that the Hanlin official giving the lecture was actually Xiao Lulang, his entire being felt unwell. "Why are you here?" He almost stood up in shock. Xiao Lulang calmly cupped his hands and said, "This humble subject is here to lecture the crown prince on the orders of His Majesty." "You are lecturing me?" What was Imperial Father thinking? Why would he send this guy to lecture him? Did he already have no place in Imperial Father's heart? What kind of knowledge could a brat who was still wet behind the ears have? The crown prince's face turned green and white. It was truly wonderful. On the other side, Gu Jiao also entered the palace. She had come to visit her great-aunt. She had the Rinshou Palace token that her great-aunt had given her, so she smoothly entered the palace. When she walked past the throne room, she didn't know that Xiao Lulang was inside. She just unconsciously glanced in the direction of the throne room. The throne room was too grand. It stood towering above 100 steps of stairs and stood loftily under the bright sky. It was grand and imposing, and the heavy aura of history assaulted the face. It was solemn and dignified, and it caused others to be unable to help but feel reverence in their hearts. The throne room was a place that every official of the Zhao country dreamed of. Only by entering the throne room could one truly be called an important official of the court. To get to Rinshou Palace, one had to pass through the imperial garden. Gu Jiao had just walked there when she was stopped by a familiar and gentle voice. "Older sister." It was Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu walked briskly towards Gu Jiao. She asked in surprise, "Older sister also entered the palace? Did you come to visit Imperial Concubine Shu?" Gu Jiao looked at her coolly. Gu Jinyu was used to Gu Jiao's indifference. She smiled and didn't take it to heart. She explained, "Imperial Concubine Shu is ill. Grandmother heard the news and couldn't eat or sleep well. So she had me enter the palace to visit Imperial Concubine Shu on her behalf." Gu Jiao and Gu Jinyu had not interacted much, but she remembered that she used to call old Madame Gu's daughter Gu Gu Gu. Seeming to sense the change in her attitude, Gu Jinyu lowered her head and smiled bitterly. "Older sister probably doesn't know. Not only did I falsely claim credit for the bellows, I also almost stole older sister's glutinous rice mortar. I told Imperial Concubine Shu that I had an even better invention. In the end, it was exposed and caused Imperial Concubine Shu to be embarrassed in front of His Majesty. I heard that I also implicated the fifth prince. Right now, Imperial Concubine Shu probably doesn't want to see me at all. Gu Jiao had no intention of chatting with her and didn't respond. Gu Jinyu said, "Older sister is going to see Imperial Concubine Shu. Why don't you come with me?" Gu Jiao was about to say that she wasn't here to see Imperial Concubine Shu, but before she could speak, she was interrupted by a youth's stern shout. "You're that wild girl from the countryside." Gu Jinyu's expression changed slightly. She turned and bowed to a youth in embroidered robes. "Greetings to His Highness, the fifth prince." The fifth prince was 17 this year. He was the same age as Gu Qinglin, but 2 months younger. He had inherited Imperial Concubine Shu's beauty and was considered outstanding among the princes who were already very good-looking. However, his domineering and arrogant attitude did not please Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao didn't even lift her eyelids. She only glanced at him carelessly. The fifth prince stood in front of the two and looked at her in surprise. "What's with your attitude? Why aren't you bowing when you see me?" Logically speaking, she was supposed to kneel and pay her respects. However, since they were relatives, she was allowed to do a curtsy. Gu Jinyu reminded Gu Jiao in a small voice, "Older sister." Gu Jiao was indifferent. The fifth prince's anger flared. "You're very bold." Gu Jinyu quickly stepped forward and said softly, "Fifth prince, older sister has just entered the palace and is not familiar with the palace rules. I will properly explain it to older sister later. Fifth prince, please forgive older sister this once for the sake of grandfather and eldest brother." When the old duke and Gu Chongqing were mentioned, the fifth prince's expression softened. No matter how insensible he was, he understood that his maternal grandfather and eldest cousin brother were his backers. On the surface, his maternal grandfather had resigned, but he was secretly working for Imperial Father. His eldest cousin brother must have had some accomplishments in the military camp. However, the fifth prince still had no intention of letting Gu Jiao off so quickly. He said coldly to Gu Jiao, "Were you behind what happened last time?" Gu Jiao looked at him strangely, completely unable to understand what he was saying. The fifth prince scoffed. "You're too much. Since you could invent those things, why didn't you tell my imperial mother in advance? You caused so many misunderstandings. Even my homework was questioned by Imperial Father. It's all your fault." What kind of tyrannical bandit logic was this? What did she know, and what she didn't know? What right did she have to tell Consort Shu, who had nothing to do with her? Gu Jiao crossed her arms and looked at the fifth prince like he was an idiot. Gu Jinyu quickly mediated. "Fifth prince, it's not older sister's fault. Older sister already told me. I didn't tell Imperial Mother." Gu Jiao also didn't deliberately tell Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu's words were clearly pushing the blame onto himself. But the fifth prince didn't buy it. "Don't speak for her. I've always heard about her. She clearly returned to the capital. But she didn't move back to the manor and didn't come to pay respects to my imperial mother. Older sister is married. How can a married daughter move back to her maiden home? As for paying respects to imperial mother, isn't she here now?" Gu Jinyu continued to give Gu Jiao meaningful looks, indicating for Gu Jiao to give in. Gu Jiao remained indifferent. The fifth prince's hair stood on end again. See, she has no sincerity at all. She clearly doesn't care about imperial mother and me. The fifth prince had been sullen recently. First, he was grounded by the emperor. Then, he was ordered to study hard. No one was allowed to help him with his homework. His teachers were also much stricter with him. He didn't have any fun at all. Today, everyone had agreed to go to Third Brother's Manor, but he had to stay in the palace because he hadn't finished his punishment report from Imperial Father. He more or less wanted to vent his anger on Gu Jiao. If it was Gu Jinyu, perhaps she would let him have his way. But Gu Jiao wouldn't let him have his way. Gu Jiao looked at him and said, "I'm not here to visit Imperial Concubine Shu, and I'm not here to pay respects to you." Saying this, she tilted her head slightly, indicating for the fifth prince to move aside. The fifth prince had only been a little angry at her, but now he was completely enraged. "I treat you as a relative and only ask you to pay respects to me. But you don't want face when I give it to you." The fifth prince said coldly, "Kneel." Gu Jinyu's face paled. "Your Highness, move aside. Otherwise, I'll punish you too." The fifth prince rarely spoke so harshly to Gu Jinyu. It could be seen that he was truly angry. Gu Jinyu didn't dare to make another sound. Gu Jiao frowned in annoyance. "I'll say it one last time. Move aside." The fifth prince said angrily, "You're shameless. Come, slap her." Two strong eunuchs walked forward and reached out to grab Gu Jiao. But they didn't even touch Gu Jiao's clothes before they were thrown onto the grass. The fifth prince was so angry that he stomped his feet. "How dare you commit a crime in the palace?" He raised his hand to grab Gu Jiao. So noisy. She had such a bad temper. Coincidentally, there was a water tank with water lilies nearby. Gu Jiao grabbed the fifth prince's collar and threw him into the water tank. "Ah!" the fifth prince screamed. He fell into the water tank while sitting and was soaked. His hands quickly grabbed the sides of the tank, and he struggled out of the water tank with a big water lily. The huge commotion shocked Empress Xiao, who was passing by. It was a sunny day today. Empress Xiao was supposed to accompany Qin Shiyu to the Imperial Garden to play, but Qin Shiyu ran away after a while. She was strolling around leisurely. Hearing the commotion, she walked over and saw the fifth prince sitting in the water tank in a sorry state. He wanted to climb out but couldn't. Although the fifth prince looked a little sorry, he was really funny. The fifth prince was very handsome, and with a pink lotus flower on his head, it really made people unable to restrain their laughter. Ahem. Empress Xiao cleared her throat and covered her mouth with a handkerchief. She ordered the servants, "What are you waiting for? Go and help the fifth prince up." Yes. Eunuch Su personally led the servants and pulled the wet fifth prince out of the water tank. It was summer. Being soaked in water did make one feel cold, but it was ugly. The fifth prince's face looked even worse. The servants didn't dare to laugh at him. They held it in. Empress Xiao walked over slowly. She glanced around and asked, "What happened?" "Greetings, mother." The fifth prince bowed sullenly. Gu Jinyu also bowed. "Greetings, Empress. May the Empress have good fortune and peace." Empress Xiao's eyes fell on Gu Jiao, who was beside Gu Jinyu. "Which palace is she from?" Gu Jinyu hurriedly said, "Empress, she is my elder sister." "Your elder sister?" Empress Xiao had never seen Gu Jiao, but she had heard of her. But sometimes people's brains short-circuited. She couldn't remember Gu Jiao's elder sister. Besides, Gu Jiao's appearance was really unsightly. Empress Xiao frowned and withdrew her gaze from Gu Jiao. "What happened?" Empress Xiao asked the fifth prince. The fifth prince glanced at Gu Jiao. He didn't intend to tell on her, but he couldn't stop the eunuch from gossiping. A eunuch got up from the ground and knelt down in front of Empress Xiao. "Empress, this girl is so bold. She dared to attack the fifth prince in the palace. If you hadn't arrived in time, the fifth prince would have been killed by her." Empress Xiao's expression turned cold. How could she assassinate a prince in the palace? "Empress." Gu Jinyu knelt down and risked his life to plead. "There was just a misunderstanding between the fifth prince and my sister. She didn't want to kill the fifth prince. Your Majesty, please understand." "Oh, the Imperial Garden is so lively today." Noble Consort Zhuang's faint voice came from the entrance. She was followed by Consort Yu. Consort Yu was Rui Wang's biological mother. They had always been close. This was the first time Noble Consort Zhuang came out to the garden after Princess Ning's miscarriage. She didn't expect to encounter such a wonderful thing. Noble Consort Zhuang bowed slightly to the Empress. Consort Yu bowed. "Greetings, Empress." The fifth prince bowed embarrassedly. "Noble Consort Zhuang, Noble Consort Yu." Noble Consort Zhuang seemed to be in a good mood today. When she spoke, she smiled slightly. What's wrong with the fifth prince? Did he go for a swim because it's too hot? Why is there a flower on his head? Flower. The fifth prince's expression changed, and he quickly raised his hand to take off the water lily on his head, thinking that he, a prince of a country, had a flower on his head in front of so many people. He was ashamed and resentful. He couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. Empress Xiao looked at Gu Jiao and sighed. The fifth prince had a little disagreement with this girl. I'm investigating this matter. Noble consort Zhuang smiled and looked at Gu Jinyu and Gu Jiao beside her. So, the fifth prince is pushed into the water by her? Since such a big thing has happened, it's better to call Consort Shu here. After all, the fifth prince is her son. Empress Xiao nodded. Call Consort Shu here. Yes. Eunuch Su went to Changchun Palace to report to Consort Shu. Knowing that her son was pushed into the water, Consort Shu ignored her illness and went to the imperial garden under the hot sun. Empress Xiao couldn't remember who Gu Jinyu's sister was, but how could Consort Shu not? She had a red birthmark on her face and was too ugly to be seen. Who else could it be but her niece who was raised in the countryside? She held the fifth prince's hand with heartache and turned to glare at Gu Jiao fiercely. Did you push the fifth prince into the water? I think you're going against the heavens. Empress Xiao said. Consort Shu, the matter hasn't been clarified yet. Miss Gu and this eunuch each have their own story. Let's listen to what the fifth prince and this girl have to say. Consort Shu gritted her teeth and said, I only asked the empress. Did she push the fifth prince into the water? The eunuch beside the fifth prince cried, Your Majesty, it's her. She hit the servants and pushed the fifth prince into the water. Consort Shu trembled with anger. She clenched her fists and said to Empress Xiao, with her last trace of reason, Your Majesty, this person is my niece. Please hand her over to me. Empress Xiao asked, What are you going to do? Consort Shu looked at Gu Jiao coldly and said, She has no mother to raise her. Of course, I will discipline her on behalf of my brother and sister-in-law. Guards, take her down. As soon as she finished speaking, Eunuch Qin's voice sounded from afar. The Empress Dowager is here. Empress Xiao and the other concubines hurriedly turned around and bowed respectfully. Empress Dowager Zhuang's phoenix carriage came to the imperial garden like a golden phoenix, flapping its wings. Her momentum instantly shocked everyone. The imperial garden was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Empress Xiao, as the head of the concubines, had to speak boldly. Mother, why are you here? If I didn't come, I wouldn't know that all of you are so good at making trouble for me. I invited a doctor from outside the palace, but he was blocked by you on the way. You wanted to kill him. What? I just came back to the palace, and you want me to be well. The only thing she didn't say was that they stopped the Empress Dowager from practicing medicine and wanted to kill the Empress Dowager. Mother, please forgive us. Empress Xiao knelt down with the help of the palace maids. Since the Empress knelt, noble consort Zhuang and the others could only follow suit and kneel on the ground. Come here. Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently. She said this to Gu Jiao. Empress Dowager Zhuang still wanted to put on airs in front of outsiders. What she meant was to let Gu Jiao walk to the side of the phoenix carriage, and then she would continue to be a trembling empress who would bring disaster to the country. Who knew that Gu Jiao would misunderstand? She supported herself with one hand, got on the phoenix carriage, and sat very obediently next to her grandaunt. Empress Dowager Zhuang, everyone, Empress Dowager Zhuang. Oh, I've spoiled her. I have to spoil her even if she collapses. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/112182072 HTML genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Beekage mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 305. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. Of course, Empress Dowager Zhuang's image wouldn't collapse so easily. After all, she was still very unreasonable to others. Consort Shu was about to speak up for the fifth prince when Empress Dowager Zhuang glared at her coldly. Consort Shu's face turned pale with fright. Empress Dowager Zhuang came quickly and left quickly. In the blink of an eye, the phoenix carriage was already far away. Although the fifth prince was indeed wronged, who had the courage to snatch him from Empress Dowager Zhuang? Empress Dowager is too biased. Why don't you ask what happened to the fifth prince? Consort Shu felt wronged. Empress Xiao glanced at her coldly. Consort Shu, be careful with your words. Consort Shu realized that she had misspoken and hurriedly bowed. I know I was wrong. Noble Consort Zhuang suddenly asked Consort Shu, does your niece know medicine? Consort Shu was speechless. How did she know? She had never seen that girl. Gu Jinyu said softly, in reply to your highness, the imperial consort, elder sister knows medicine. During the incident at the Ministry of Works, many critically ill patients were sent to elder sister's clinic. You still have the face to talk about the accident at the Ministry of Works. Consort Shu was furious at Gu Jinyu. Consort Shu had been favored in the palace for many years. If Gu Jinyu hadn't cheated her, she would still be His Majesty's favorite concubine. Empress Xiao and noble Consort Zhuang both knew the inside story. They disdained Consort Shu's behavior, but they didn't say anything. Noble Consort Zhuang said to Empress Xiao, since the Empress Dowager summoned the doctor, she must be sick. I'll go to Rinshou Palace to see the Empress Dowager. Empress Xiao nodded slowly. Okay, I still have some things to deal with, so I won't go now. I'll pay respects to my mother later. Noble Consort Zhuang smiled, bowed slightly, and turned to leave. The moment she turned around, the smile on her face faded. No matter how high her status was or how much the Empress Dowager valued her, she couldn't call her mother. Empress Xiao continued to look for Qin Chuyu. After taking a few steps, an idea flashed through her mind. Eunuch Su, that girl, couldn't be the one who invented the bellows and glutinous rice mortar, right? It's her. Eunuch Su nodded. Empress Xiao broke into a cold sweat for herself. His Majesty thought highly of that girl. Fortunately, he didn't have time to punish her. But then again, how did that girl become Empress Dowager Zhuang's guest? She seemed to be very familiar with Empress Dowager Zhuang. It seemed that this was not the first day they had met. Does His Majesty know about this? On the other side, Empress Dowager Zhuang and Gu Jiao returned to Rinshou Palace. Eunuch Qin went to the small kitchen and instructed the cook to make Gu Jiao's favorite snacks. Empress Dowager Zhuang brought her back to her bedroom and sat down on a bench. Tell me, how did you find time to visit me today? Gu Jiao sat down beside her and thought for a moment before saying, I'm Miss Grand Aunt. Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. I don't believe it. Gu Jiao curved her lips and took out a food box from the small basket. After opening it, the aroma of crispy sesame oil and brown sugar rushed to her nose. It's still hot. Gu Jiao took out the steaming brown sugar glutinous rice cake. The brown sugar glutinous rice cake was fried black and sprinkled with freshly fried white sesame seeds. The color was attractive and the aroma was rich. Empress Dowager Zhuang's mouth watered. Gu Jiao put a small yellow duck bowl in front of Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at the tableware in Little Jingkong and was speechless. Why did they use such childish tableware? Are there no bowls at home? She asked with a dark face. Gu Jiao said, Today, Uncle Zhou and Aunt Lu are holding banquets at the same time. There aren't enough bowls, so they were borrowed. The cupboard was empty. Only the strange tableware in Little Jing Kong was not borrowed. These tableware were all made by Gu Jiao in the way he liked. However, he had a little problem of liking the new and disliking the old. As long as Gu Jiao made new ones, he would not want the old ones. He was now obsessed with kitten bowls and did not use the small yellow duck bowl. Empress Dowager Zhuang. So you not only gave me the tableware that the little monk used, but also the tableware that he did not want. Aijia's heart is bitter. Aijia will not say it. The temptation of the brown sugar glutinous rice cake was huge. Although she disliked the small yellow duck bowl, Empress Dowager Zhuang still enjoyed the food Gu Jiao brought. She only ate 3 before Gu Jiao did not allow her to eat any more. There are 3 more, Empress Dowager Zhuang said with grievance. Those are for eunuch Qin. Gu Jiao said. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Oh, anyway, Qin Kuan's food will be mine later. Gu Jiao. I will bring them to eunuch Qin and watch him eat. Empress Dowager Zhuang. When noble consort Zhuang arrived at Renshou Palace, the brown sugar glutinous rice cake episode was over. Gu Jiao was taking Empress Dowager Zhuang's pulse. The two were sitting in chairs. The sun shone through the window, shining on Empress Dowager Zhuang's silver hair and on the young girl's black hair. The scene was somewhat peaceful and beautiful. Noble consort Zhuang was stunned. She thought she might be seeing things. For a moment, she actually saw a trace of kindness in her aunt's eyes. The most unkind person in the world was her aunt. The emotions in Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes had been restrained, leaving only a domineering and majestic face. What are you doing here? Noble consort Zhuang smiled. Didn't Aunt invite a doctor from the common people? I came to see Aunt. After all, she was her niece. Empress Dowager Zhuang was not bad to noble consort Zhuang. Otherwise, she would not have come in so quickly. Even the Empress had to wait outside for a while when she came to pay respects. Empress Dowager Zhuang said, Aijia is fine. I just asked someone to check your pulse. I see. Then I am relieved. Noble consort Zhuang said and sat down on a stool slightly below Empress Dowager Zhuang. Gu Jiao sat next to Empress Dowager Zhuang and took her pulse. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't restrict Gu Jiao with the rules of the palace. So Gu Jiao didn't know that this bench was Empress Dowager Zhuang's special seat. Ordinary people were not qualified to sit on it. When the imperial doctors took Empress Dowager Zhuang's pulse, they all knelt on the ground. Noble consort Zhuang naturally didn't know that Gu Jiao had even slept on Empress Dowager Zhuang's phoenix bed. She slept horizontally, slept on her stomach, slept with drool, and slept in all kinds of ways. Gu Jiao finished taking Empress Dowager Zhuang's hand and gently put it back. I said Aijia is fine, right? Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. She didn't really call her to Renshou Palace to be a doctor. Gu Jiao said, you are not allowed to eat candy. Secretly. Empress Dowager Zhuang choked. Aijia. When did Aijia eat candy secretly? Is it Qin Kuan, that dog? Halfway through her words, she realized that noble consort Zhuang was still here. She changed the topic and said coldly, Aijia doesn't eat candy. Only children eat things. Oh. Then it seems that you don't need to give this. Gu Jiao took out the candied fruit from her pocket and silently put it back. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Not allowed to go back. Noble consort Zhuang. In fact, Empress Dowager Zhuang was still very arrogant. This didn't change much before or after returning to the palace, whether it was her grandaunt or Empress Dowager Zhuang. Even when she spoke to Gu Jiao, her tone wasn't very good. But when she liked someone, she couldn't hide it. When she looked at that person, there would be light in her eyes. The last time noble consort Zhuang saw her aunt like someone so much was when Princess Ning was in the palace. Although Princess Ning wasn't her aunt's biological daughter, she was more like her own flesh and blood. Her aunt almost doted on her. Unfortunately, for a man, Princess Ning ignored Empress Dowager Zhuang's dissuasion and married far away to the bitter cold of the northern border. Her aunt once told her that if she dared to walk out of this door, she would cut off all ties with her. His aunt had the power to overturn the imperial court. She could control the universe and play with the world in the palm of her hand. However, she could not control the marriage of her daughter. Because she cared too much, she had a weakness. When Princess Ning threatened her with death, her aunt still lost. Noble consort Zhuang would never forget the night many years ago when Princess Ning, wearing a bright red wedding dress, cowed out 3 times with tears in her eyes outside the silent Rinshou Palace in the cold wind and snow. Aken is unfilial. I can't serve Imperial Mother. I can't take care of Imperial Mother for the rest of my life. Imperial Mother, please take care of yourself. Aken, bye-bye. Princess Ning got married. Her aunt fell ill. She almost lost her life. After that, his aunt cut off the last trace of humanity and turned into a demon empress who could bring calamity to the country through and through. After Consort Shu brought the 5th prince back to Changchun Palace, she felt that something was wrong. She called Gu Jinyu over. Why didn't you mention that girl's medical skills before? Gu Jinyu lowered her eyes and said, Your Highness didn't ask. Imperial concubine Shu gasped. Consort Shu frowned and asked, When did she know the Empress Dowager? Gu Jinyu shook her head. I don't know. You don't know anything. What use are you? Consort Shu couldn't get anything out of Gu Jinyu and impatiently let her go. The more Consort Shu thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. Wasn't that girl one of His Majesty's people? She had His Majesty's appreciation, so why was she so close to the Empress Dowager? Could it be that she sought refuge with the Empress Dowager? Ha! Consort Shu suddenly sneered. Very good. She was worried about how to deal with this girl. She was really giving her a pillow. Come, Your Highness. A palace maid walked over. Where is His Majesty? Consort Shu asked. In the imperial study. The palace maid replied. Consort Shu raised her eyebrows. Prepare a sedan. I want to go to the imperial study. She wanted to put righteousness before family and expose this girl to His Majesty. Digression. I just want to laugh 3 times. Ha ha ha. Then, ask for monthly votes. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642826/112179314. HTML Genius remembers this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 306. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. In the study, the Crown Prince was having his last class of the day. Xiao Liulong's class was actually very good. He explained the profound in simple terms and quoted from many sources. It was not boring at all. It was more lively and easy to understand than Scholar Han's lecture. This was not to say that Scholar Han's literary foundation was not as good as Xiao Liulong's. It was just that Xiao Lulang had a few troublemakers at home who tutored them. Whenever it was a bit boring, the 3 of them would collectively go into a trance. But when the Crown Prince looked at Xiao Liulong's face, he could not help but think of the deceased Xiao Hong. He was always in a trance. Your Highness, please explain what you just said. Xiao Lulang interrupted the Crown Prince's trance for the 27th time. The Crown Prince was stunned. Huh? Xiao Lulang repeated. The Crown Prince was stunned. He was thinking about Xiao Hong just now. How could he have heard what he said? Xiao Lulang put down his book on the podium and said, If the Crown Prince does not understand, I will explain it again. The Crown Prince felt a headache coming on. It was already lunchtime, but because he was always in a trance, he did not finish the content. If it were another civil official, the class would have already ended. They did not dare to delay the Crown Prince's class. But Xiao Lulang was very stubborn and insisted on finishing the class. The Crown Prince braced himself and listened again. After listening carefully, he learned a lot. At least he could immediately repeat the explanation. Xiao Lulang tested him on the key points of today's lesson. The Crown Prince thought that he did not understand, but unexpectedly he answered all of them. He was surprised. When did he understand? Wasn't his mind on Xiao Heng during this class? Xiao Lulang said neither too fast nor too slow. Today's class ends here. Your Highness, please write down the homework. There's still homework? The Crown Prince frowned as he looked at him. How daring. His hair wasn't even fully grown yet, and he was only here to substitute for a lesson. Did he really think that he was the Crown Prince's teacher? In any case, the Crown Prince was the legitimate son of the Emperor and the future monarch. He had the right to be proud and arrogant. He looked down on Xiao Lulang, this little cripple from a humble family. Of course, it was also possible that the complicated feelings he had for Xiao Heng were causing trouble in his heart, causing him to project part of his feelings towards Xiao Heng onto Xiao Lulang. Does he love Xiao Heng? Naturally, it was painful. He had so many brothers and sisters in the palace, but before little Qi was born, he didn't have any real siblings. They all wanted his position. On the surface, they flattered him, but behind his back, they envied him and cursed him. The only person he treated as a younger brother was Xiao Heng. Xiao Heng was so outstanding. Even though he was 5 years younger than him, he studied better than him, recited better poems than him, and even had better looks than him. But he thought that this was his cousin and would be his subject in the future. It was also a good thing that he was outstanding. He had never been jealous of him, until he met Wen Linlang. That year, he was 13, and Wen Linlang was 11. He was just a young and inexperienced boy who didn't understand the love between men and women. But inexplicably, at first glance, he felt that Wen Linlang was the crown princess he would marry in the future. His mother often called the daughters of the ministers into the palace to accompany her, but he didn't like any of them. If he had to have someone accompany him on the road to the emperor, he hoped that that person would be Wen Linlang. What's your name? I, Sister Linlang. The 8-year-old Xiao Heng ran over with a childish face. He tilted his little head and looked at Wen Linlang, then looked at him. Brother Crown Prince, you're here? Let me introduce you. This is Sister Linlang. Sister Linlang, this is Cousin Crown Prince. Greetings, Your Highness. She quickly knelt down and bowed. After that, she held Xiao Heng's hand and left. While walking, she wiped away the sweat on Xiao Heng's forehead. He heard her gently advise him, Heng, don't climb trees in the future. It's very dangerous. But I want to pick fruit for you to eat. Don't you like to eat it? But I prefer Heng to be well. I don't want Heng to get hurt. Oh. He returned to the palace and told his imperial concubine mother that he liked Heng's sister Linlang. However, his imperial concubine mother very seriously told him, she is Heng's fiancée. She saved Heng's life. The marriage was set a long time ago. You are the older brother. You cannot steal your younger brother's marriage. Your Highness, Your Highness. Xiao Liulang's voice interrupted the Crown Prince's thoughts. The Crown Prince was so shocked that he began to sweat. He guiltily glanced at Xiao Lulang. This was too frightening. This person was too similar to Xiao Heng. What was Father Emperor thinking? To have him give him lessons, was he not afraid that he would have nightmares? The Crown Prince calmed himself down and maintained his good self-control. Suppressing his impatience and discomfort, he said in a normal tone, I did not remember the homework just now. I will have to trouble Xiao Xiao Zhua to repeat it. Coming out of the study, the Crown Prince's entire body was soaked. The palace servant waiting outside immediately went forward and handed him a handkerchief while fanning him. Fortunately, it was currently summer, so sweating was not strange. Only the crown prince understood that the majority of the sweat on his body was cold sweat. Xiao Lulang calmly walked out of the study. The crown prince glanced at his walking stick. Xiao Hong was very vain and cared a lot about how others looked at him. When he was young, he had lost 2 front teeth, and he did not speak in front of others for half a year. He definitely would not allow himself to be disabled. With him, he would rather sit in a wheelchair than limp around in broad daylight. He was not Xiao Hong. He was not. On the other side, Imperial concubine Shu sat in a sedan chair and left Changchun Palace. The emperor was reading memorials in the study when he suddenly heard Eunuch Wei report, "Your Majesty, Consort Shu is here." The emperor frowned. Now. It was lunchtime. The emperor glanced at Empress Xiao, who was silently waiting for him. He cleared his throat and said to Eunuch Wei, "Let Consort Shu in." Yes. Eunuch Wei walked out. Empress Xiao did not say anything. She silently sat on the chair across from the emperor and sipped her tea. Qin Shiyu was rolling on the ground. He was practicing the toad fighting technique, which was what the 3 scumbags of the Imperial College saw in a novel. It was said that this technique was very powerful and could beat away many bad people after learning it. He was showing his skills to his father and telling him that he was someone who could protect him. The emperor did not think that his son was practicing. He only thought that his son was too fat and should lose weight. Rolling on the ground was also a form of exercise, so he did not scold him. Consort Shu thought that the emperor was the only one in the study. Unexpectedly, when she entered, the whole family of 3 was there. "Your Majesty, Your Majesty." Consort Shu suppressed her embarrassment and bowed to the 2. Empress Xiao smiled. The emperor said, "Little Qi." Qin Shiyu, who was rolling on the ground, turned his head and glanced at his father. "Father?" Then he saw Consort Shu. "Huh? Consort Gu?" He stood up and bowed to Consort Shu politely. Little Qi greets Consort Gu. "Good boy," Consort Shu said with a smile. How could he roll on the ground like this? The empress had learned all the rules. How could she teach her son like this? "Consort Shu, do you need something?" the emperor asked. She did need something, but how could she say it in front of the empress and the 7th prince? "Eunuch Su, take Lil Qi out," Empress Xiao said. She was going to stay here by herself. "Your Highness, I'll go outside to play marbles with you," Eunuch Su said with a smile. Qin Shiyu was obsessed with marbles, so he went with Eunuch Su. "You can leave too," the emperor said to the maids who were fanning him and Empress Xiao in the room. "Yes." The maids walked out in a line. Eunuch Wei was guarding the door. "Tell me, what's the matter?" the emperor asked concisely. Consort Shu looked conflicted. Empress Xiao smiled. "It seems that it's inconvenient for me to hear. Then I'll come to visit your Majesty another day." No. Consort Shu didn't have the guts to talk to His Majesty behind the empress' back. It didn't matter if she didn't expose it, but it was against the rules if she said it out in the open. Consort Shu said with a smile, "I'm not hiding anything from the empress. I was just thinking about how to say it. When the empress asked me, I was enlightened and knew where to start. Speaking of which, I need the empress to testify for me." Empress Xiao picked up the teacup and gently stirred the tea with the lid. She said, "Oh? What do you need me to testify for?" Placing righteousness before family was a sign of loyalty in front of the emperor, but in the ears of others, it sounded like a family scandal being aired in public. Of course, Consort Shu didn't want the empress to see her as a joke, but the arrow had already been knocked. She could only bite the bullet and expose Gu Jiao. Chen Xia only found out today that the girl was acquainted with the Empress Dowager. Consort Shu did not take sides in the palace. She did not curry favor with Consort Zhuang and did not rely on Empress Xiao. But there was one thing she was very careful about. That was, she could not get too close to Empress Dowager Zhuang. She said this with the intention of removing herself from the picture. Of course, she did not forget to remove Marquis Ding and Fu from the picture. Ever since that girl came to the capital, not only did she not come to pay respect to me, she also did not return to the Fu to pay respects to her grandfather and grandmother. Her older brothers in the family are like strangers to her. so her collusion with the Empress Dowager could not have been incited by Marquis Ding and Fu. Empress Xiao had actually come to talk about this matter, but she was not as impatient as Consort Shu. She first wanted to see His Majesty's attitude towards the girl. She would not do something that was strenuous and unrewarding. It was just that there were too many people in the palace. Even if she didn't say it, the matter of the Imperial Garden would reach His Majesty's ears sooner or later. At most, it would be due to the fact that she did not report it. Empress Xiao was the mother of the country. She did not need any merit to sit firmly in the position of Empress. On the contrary, she could not make a mistake. Otherwise, she would implicate the Crown Prince. Empress Xiao did not expect that the first person to report to the Emperor would be Consort Shu. That girl was Consort Shu's niece. That was true. She was not close to Consort Shu. Her invention of the bellows and glutinous rice mortar had received His Majesty's appreciation. But not only did Consort Shu not benefit from her glory, she had also been punished because of her. Today, the fifth prince had been pushed into the water by her. With the old and new grudges added together, it would be strange if Consort Shu did not want to tear that girl apart. Empress Xiao calmly drank her tea and did not make a single comment. The Emperor's face sank. He looked towards Empress Xiao. Did the Empress also see it? Empress Xiao put down her teacup and sighed, saying, Chen Xie did see her follow the Empress Dowager to Renshou Palace. I heard that the Empress Dowager was not feeling well and invited a doctor from the common people. Once the doctor was invited, the Emperor's expression relaxed. He knew the little miracle-working doctor's medical skills. The reputation of the Miracle Hall had gradually spread in the capital. It was not surprising that the Empress Dowager would invite him to the palace. Consort Shu hurriedly said, But how can a doctor from the common people sit in the Empress Dowager's phoenix carriage? Few princesses have sat in it. Empress Xiao smiled and did not speak anymore. The Emperor knew Empress Dowager's character. She would never let a doctor who she had only met once or twice sit in her phoenix carriage. Consort Shu was right. Few princesses had sat in it. She was a heinous old woman. Did she bribe the little miracle-working doctor? The Emperor said in a low voice, You go back to the palace first. I still have something to deal with. Consort Shu understood that the Emperor was going to verify the truth of the matter. She was not afraid of the Emperor's investigation. She was afraid that the Emperor would not investigate. So many pairs of eyes had seen that girl and Empress Dowager were very close. At first glance, it was obvious that there was something fishy. At night, the Emperor called eunuch He from the imperial household and ordered him to take people to investigate the relationship between Gu Jiao and Empress Dowager Zhuang. The relationship between Gu Jiao and Empress Dowager Zhuang was not difficult to investigate. No one had found it before because no one suspected them at all. Eunuch He carried a burden and pretended to be a peddler to Qingshui Alley. Then everything came to the surface. The candlelight in the imperial study swayed. The Emperor's face was lit up and then dark. He clenched his fists and said, What did you say? She saved Empress Dowager Zhuang? Yes, Empress Dowager Zhuang is her and Xiao Xiuzhua's grandaunt. Xiao Xiuzhua went to the capital to take the exam. They also followed him from the countryside. But Eunuch He paused. He did not know if he should say that Empress Dowager Zhuang's behavior in Qingshui Alley seemed to be different from that in the palace. If he had not confirmed the characteristics in the portrait, he almost thought that the grandaunt Jiao Jiao in the neighborhood was a real old lady from the countryside. After all, Empress Dowager Zhuang was a person who never suffered losses. Eunuch He continued, I also inquired about the time when Empress Dowager Zhuang went to their house. It was not long after Empress Dowager Zhuang disappeared from Leprosy Mountain. Our people lost track of Empress Dowager Zhuang in Qingchuan Town. They are also from Qingchuan Town. The Emperor fell into the chair dejectedly. His face was full of disbelief and hurt. So before she met me, she met Empress Dowager Zhuang. Eunuch He sighed, I'm afraid so. The Emperor said again, Was she the one who cured Empress Dowager Zhuang's leprosy? Eunuch, he said, I don't know. But I'm afraid so. The emperor laughed self-mockingly. His eyes were full of pain. She can even cure venereal disease. Why can't she cure leprosy? I should have expected it. In the world except for her, who can cure Empress Dowager Zhuang's leprosy. I just don't want to guess it was her. Your Majesty. Eunuch Wei looked at the emperor's almost crazy expression and felt worried. The emperor's eyes turned red. His feelings for Gu Jiao were very special. It was definitely not the love between a man and a woman, but it was also not a normal doctor-patient relationship. This little girl carried too many expectations of him. He was grateful to her, appreciated her, valued her, and even cherished her. When he saw her, he would be happy. But he never expected that she was actually the Empress Dowager's person. People's standpoints and perspectives were different. They had different prejudices, so they would see things from different angles. In the same way, Gu Jiao and her husband saved Empress Dowager Zhuang and took her in. In Grand Tutor Zhuang's eyes, Xiao Lulang had turned to the emperor and knew that the other party was the Empress Dowager. All the redemption and shelter were just to put the Empress Dowager under house arrest. But in the emperor's eyes, it was Empress Dowager Zhuang who deliberately hid her identity and used the image of an innocent old woman to cheat Gu Jiao and her husband's sympathy and trust. She also used Xiao Lulang to go to the capital for the imperial examination as an opportunity to return to the capital. She is so despicable that she can use an imperial examination candidate. She is so shameless that she can scheme against her own savior. She is a vicious woman who will do anything. The emperor could tolerate other things, but he couldn't tolerate this. The emperor's eyes were like torches. Why did everyone around me betray me? The little magic doctor did it, and so did Ning'an. What was wrong with me? How did I lose to her? Eunuch Wei, and Eunuch, he didn't say anything. They understood that the emperor was thinking of Princess Ning, and again. Princess Ning was the daughter of concubine Jing. The emperor had been raised by concubine Jing since he was a child, so he had a close relationship with Princess Ning'an. The two grew up together. The Empress Dowager had a good relationship with concubine Jing's children in the early years. Otherwise, she wouldn't have supported concubine Jing's adopted son to the throne. But the emperor was dissatisfied with Empress Dowager Zhuang's regency after he ascended the throne, so he distanced himself from Empress Dowager Zhuang. In the end, they broke off their relationship. Between the emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang, Princess Ning chose Empress Dowager Zhuang. It wasn't that she had framed the emperor for Empress Dowager Zhuang, but that her protection of Empress Dowager Zhuang made the emperor feel bitterly disappointed. In the end, Princess Ning married to the northern frontier for her sweetheart, causing Empress Dowager Zhuang to fall seriously ill and almost die. The emperor felt a faint, twisted pleasure in his heart. You took Ning away from me back then, and now she is taken away by someone else. Have you tasted the pain that I suffered back then? The emperor was so depressed that he felt like he couldn't breathe in the palace. He decided to take a walk outside the palace. He changed his clothes and went to Marquis Xuanping's estate with Eunuch Wei. He wanted to have a drink with Marquis Xianping, but the Marquis went to the soft jade pavilion. The emperor then secretly went to find the old Marquis, but the old Marquis wasn't at home either. The emperor was confused. Did these two people make an appointment to anger him today? The emperor misunderstood the old Marquis. The old Marquis didn't know that the emperor had left the palace and went to the martial arts center. Gu Jiao also went to the martial arts center. Gu Jiao had lost to someone a while ago. After hearing the news, the old Marquis came to watch Gu Jiao fight. Gu Jiao's opponent was still a young swordsman from last time. Her opponent was about 27 or 28 years old and was at the peak of his strength. On the other hand, Gu Jiao was still young, so she was inferior to her opponent in terms of strength. Of course, the most important thing was the moves. Gu Jiao learned how to kill people in the organization, but she couldn't kill people in the martial arts center. The old Marquis saw the problem after watching half a round. Best of 3, Gu Jiao lost the first round. The old Marquis called Gu Jiao to the backyard. Little brother Gu, Use the moves you used on him to attack me again." After saying that, the old Marquis imitated the swordsman's moves on the spot. Every move was exactly the same. Gu Jiao exclaimed in her heart. Was the old man so powerful? He could learn it with just one look? Gu Jiao went to attack the old Marquis, but she lost even more miserably than in the arena. The old Marquis said, "Your moves are very messy. You're using fist moves and palm moves on the spot. Where did you learn from?" Gu Jiao took out a small notebook and wrote, "No, master, I fought blindly." The old Marquis's mouth twitched. She could fight blindly like this. The old Marquis thought for a while, then demonstrated and said, "If you want to use fist moves, you can use these moves. If you want to use palm moves," with his guidance. Gu Jiao won 2 rounds in a row after entering the arena and clinching victory in this competition. The old Marquis was very satisfied. This child's talent was really too high. She was not inferior to Gu Changqing at all. Gu Jiao won the fight. She touched the small mask and looked up at the old Marquis. The old Marquis went downstairs and called her to the armory of the martial arts center. He said to her, "You've never used a weapon. Actually, you're at a disadvantage. I originally thought that you didn't like to use weapons." Now she knew that he didn't know how to use weapons at all. Gu Jiao thought, "I'm very good at shooting, the kind that can explode the head with one shot." The old Marquis looked at the weapons in the room and said, "Pick one." Gu Jiao didn't have much interest in cold weapons. The old Marquis thought that she didn't know how to pick, so he looked carefully and picked up a red tasseled spear. He said to her, "Use this." Gu Jiao nodded. "Okay." The old Marquis demonstrated a set of spear moves for her. The old Marquis still restrained his aura, but Gu Jiao still felt an earth-shattering power. This is an expert, a real expert. "You try." The old Marquis stopped and threw the red-tasseled spear to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao caught it. In her previous life, she had too little contact with cold weapons. Other than daggers, there were only scalpels. Suddenly, giving her a red-tasseled spear, she was a little stunned. She made a mistake on the first move. If it was Gu Changqing or any of the old Marquis soldiers, the old Marquis would have already lashed out with his whip. But with little brother Gu, the old Marquis seemed to be especially patient. He himself didn't know why. When Gu Jiao made a mistake for the 7th time, the old Marquis's temper couldn't be controlled anymore. Gu Jiao looked at him cutely, her eyes full of innocence. The old Marquis, forget it. She's still young. I'll teach her slowly. I'll show you one last time. Watch carefully. If you make a mistake again, I won't teach you anymore. After the 18th demonstration, this is really the last time. The old Marquis was about to collapse. This child was here to torture him. Why did she learn so quickly barehanded? But she couldn't even play with a red-tasseled spear. Just as the old Marquis was about to vomit blood, Gu Jiao finally demonstrated a complete set of spear moves. The old Marquis was paralyzed on the ground, only feeling that he was about to collapse. Who was the one training who? Why did he have to take the extra step of teaching this kid martial arts? He had almost lost his life from a training. Let's stop here today. His arms and legs were about to break, and his old waist was also sprained. Gu Jiao hadn't played enough. She had tasted the sweetness. But seeing that he really was about to collapse, she felt a twinge of conscience and decided not to squeeze the old man dry. She took out a small notebook and scribbled, "Then let's practice again next time." The old Marquis's temples suddenly throbbed. Next time? There's a next time? The old Marquis's face was full of rejection. Gu Jiao thought for a while, then took out 2 small jade-like fingers and gently pinched his sleeves. Under the mask, the pair of watery phoenix eyes looked at him very innocently. The old Marquis gave a vague Gu Jiao shook her little head happily. The old Marquis looked at the little head shaking in front of him and inexplicably wanted to spit. Of course, he restrained himself, because he felt that it was wrong to hurt his brother. This scene was seen by Gu Chengfeng, who was tailing Gu Jiao. Others might not recognize Gu Jiao, But how could he not? He was the one who introduced Gu Jiao to the martial arts center. Moreover, he had long been in cahoots with the masked Gu Jiao many times. Speaking of which, his grandfather actually liked this kind of thing? With his grandfather's bad temper, he thought that the girl would be beaten into a pile of fertilizer. Gu Chengfeng was tailing Gu Jiao because he found some information about Immortal Music House. He planned to sell the information to this girl. He also didn't want to extort her. The price of affection was 1,000 taels. But who would have thought that this girl would actually play with his grandfather for so long? Today probably wouldn't work out. Forget it. It's the same to find her another day. Gu Chengfeng returned to the Marquis's residence. Not long after, the old Marquis also returned. He was very tired. Teaching Gu Chongqing wasn't so tiring, because Gu Chongqing could be beaten up as he pleased. That brat, he couldn't do it. In the end, he suffered internal injuries. Grandfather. Gu Chengfeng suddenly walked out from the corridor. The old Marquis was startled. Seeing that it was Gu Chengfeng, his eyes turned cold. Why are you hiding here in the middle of the night instead of sleeping? After seeing the other side of his grandfather, Gu Chengfeng didn't seem to be as afraid of him as before. He smiled and said, "Grandfather didn't come back so late. I was worried about you, so I waited here for you." The old Marquis looked at Gu Chengfeng suspiciously. Gu Chengfeng immediately revealed a smile. "Grandfather, can you lend me your Nirvana Phoenix for 2 days?" The Nirvana Phoenix was the old Marquis's mount. It was even more powerful than Gu Chongqing's horse. Gu Chengfeng had been eyeing it for a long time, but never had a chance to ride it. The old Marquis loved horses as much as his life. Riding a horse was like riding him. The old Marquis ignored Gu Chengfeng and strode towards the courtyard. Gu Chengfeng took out the killing move he learned from Gu Jiao. He stretched out 2 fingers and gently pinched the old Marquis's sleeve. The old Marquis turned around. He looked at the old Marquis and began to shamelessly act cute. The old Marquis gave him a big slap in the face. Gu Chengfeng was directly sent flying and crashed into a pillar. He stuck to it for a long time before slipping to the ground. Gu Chengfeng, what went wrong? Why was he always the one getting hurt? The same small action, Gu Jiao did it softly and cutely. When Gu Chengfeng did it, the old Marquis felt that he was a sissy. The old Marquis got goosebumps. Before he could react, his hand had already reached out. Gu Chengfeng couldn't take care of himself for the rest of the night from this slap. He was especially miserable and had to be carried back by the servants. After Gu Jiao came out of the martial arts center, she saw that it was already so late and decided to go straight home. She took a shortcut, so it was inevitable that it was a bit remote. When she passed by a quiet and deserted street, she suddenly heard the sound of metal clashing, followed by a familiar voice. "You dog! How dare you block my way?" It was Eunuch Wei's voice. Gu Jiao's eyes turned cold. She turned around and stepped on the wall to the roof, then jumped down from the roof to another street. The distance was a bit far. Gu Jiao sped up, but when she arrived at the scene, Eunuch Wei was already lying in a pool of blood. "Eunuch Wei." Gu Jiao walked forward and took gauze and hemostatic powder from her arms to stop the bleeding. Eunuch Wei grabbed her wrist with his blood-stained hand. "No, don't worry about me. Go and save." His Majesty, Gu Jiao wrapped the gauze around the wound on his abdomen. "Wait for me." Gu Jiao followed the direction Eunuch Wei pointed and caught up with the emperor, who was being surrounded. The emperor was also injured. The last secret guard was stabbed in the heart in order to cover his escape. Seeing that a man in black was about to take his head, a red-tasseled spear suddenly came with a whistling sound. It pierced the man's shoulder and nailed him to the wall. If Gu Jiao was just having fun in the martial arts club, then at this moment, she really felt the power of the red-tasseled spear. Blood splashed on the emperor's face. The emperor fell to the ground, and his whole person was stunned. Gu Jiao grabbed the emperor. "Let's go." When another wave of men in black arrived, the emperor was no longer in the alley. Gu Jiao first hid the emperor in a cowsheet, then turned around to look for Eunuch Wei. Unfortunately, she couldn't find him. The emperor was injured. If the other party wanted to investigate, they would start from the medical center. With that thought in mind, Gu Jiao brought him back to Jadewater Alley. She couldn't go to her son-in-law's house, nor could she go to Xiao Liulong's house. Little Jing Kong was already asleep. After thinking about it, there was only one room in the house that was empty. Gu Jiao helped the emperor to her great-aunt's house. "What's wrong, Jiao Jiao?" Yao Shi heard the commotion and came out. Gu Jiao put the emperor on the bed and said to Yao Shi, "Nothing, just a patient. Do you need help?" Yao Shi asked. "Boil some water." Gu Jiao said. "Okay." Yao Shi went to the kitchen. Madam, let me do it." Yuya put down the half-washed clothes and said to Yao Shi, "Go to the house and rest. I will boil the water." Yao Shi nodded and looked at the house with some worry. Gu Jiao had already closed the door. The emperor's wound was not in a good place. It was above his thigh, and he almost lost his melon. Gu Jiao lit all the candles and used the night pearl that her great-aunt gave to Gu Yan. She opened the small medicine box and began to cut the melon for the emperor. Perform the surgery. Digression. There is a book review activity in the Q Point Circle of Readers. Everyone can participate. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/112154414. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com that you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.